Good morning. We ask for the courtesy of the board members, staff, and members of the public that you please silence your cell phones. Good morning and welcome to the Orange County School Board's work session, which has been scheduled today, Tuesday, May 12th, 2026, for the purpose of discussing Policy JIC, Student Code of Conduct, Policy IJNDC, Appropriate Use of Electronic Resources. The public will not have an opportunity to participate in this work session to provide public comment because this is not a regularly scheduled school board meeting. No action will be taken, and there will be no open public comment period in which the public normally addresses the school board on relevant topics that are related to the work of the board. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. I am just temporarily filling in before our chair arrives, and here she is, so she will be taking over for me.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Apologies for that. Had some stuff going on in District 2, unfortunate, about e-scooters. We'll talk about that later. But as a reminder, board members will not engage in outside electronic or digital communication during the meeting, so we may focus on the matters immediately before us. To my fellow board members and district staff, When speaking, please make sure your microphone is turned on and to speak directly into it so our YouTube and Orange TV viewers can hear you clearly. Again, thank you so much for participating in today's meeting. We will now pause for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Now for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now be turning it over to Deputy Superintendent Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Each year. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Each year, we provide the opportunity to review the Code of Student Conduct, and this is the second work session to revisit this topic. As you recall, we first brought this to the school board on April 7th. We have had opportunities for our community to provide input, met with principals, conducted a survey, as well as receive feedback from the school board in terms of what they would like to see revised. We have an incredible team here with us today. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Demiki Joyner and Alkivia Haynes to go over any proposed changes to the Code of Student Conduct.
Thank you. Good morning.
Chair Salamanca, Deputy Superintendent Martinez, and board members. We're just going to go over those changes that were requested from the last work session. First, going to page 10. Under cheating, we removed attempted use from the cheating definition, and that's also going to be on page 16. On page 12, under the disciplinary responses, we removed SAFE referral as a SAFE coordinator positions based on that. And that's going to be on pages 16 and 23 as well. We're going to skip to page 33. Under our level 1 through 3 procedures, we removed business hours. It previously said under step 4, 24 business hours. We removed business for clarity. That's going to be on page 35 as well. Next on page 36. Under step 7, we just added DTM for clarity. Under step 9, we removed the new language and reverted to the previous language. The language that we previously had allows for an area administrator to place a student at OCVS if that is the request of the board. Skipping to page 50, under dress code, we removed the new formatting and language and went back to the old language. Under number 5, we added language. Specialized courses may require specialized attire, such as sports uniforms or safety gear, and these must be approved by the principal before being worn during the school day. Additionally, this part is the new language. Practice uniforms and game uniforms are expected to align with competition uniform requirements as outlined by the Florida High School Athletic Association, or FHSAA, in its bylaws and its sport-specific manuals, as well as in requirements adopted by the National Federation of State High School Associations, or NFHS. And that concludes the updates.
Thank you. We have Member Vanos queued up.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. My question is on page 50 with the dress code. The comment here is added per board's recommendation, but my recollection of the last meeting was that we were not going to be requiring practice uniform. We were just going to let our students wear what was comfortable for practice. So I'm not sure why this additional regulation was sought out. However, I would suggest that if people feel strongly about this, that at least we allow students when they are off campus practicing to be able to wear what is comfortable to them. So that is my suggestion.
May I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So when the team went back and talked to our head of athletics, Lonnie, he stated that in these sports-specific manuals that we have to, we're obligated to abide by. They do list requirements for uniforms and as well as practice uniforms, and so that's why that language was added. I do have a picture that I can show you that would allow for students to wear, it wouldn't allow them to wear whatever is comfortable, but it would allow their practice uniform to align with what they would wear in a match or a game. And give me 1 second. So here, this is two of our schools' beach volleyball uniform. That uniform would technically be in violation of our code of conduct as their shorts do not reach mid-level, but they would be allowed to practice in something that is similar to that.
And is that because that's the competition uniform?
Correct.
Okay, so unless the competition uniform mirrors what people are practicing in, then it doesn't really address what we actually talked about at the last meeting.
In our research, the only thing it would not provide for is for students to wear, for example, a sports bra, because none of our uniforms are of a sports bra type.
Just curious why this wasn't part of the dress code before.
It's in the athletics manuals, and I am not 100% sure why it was there before, but I can go back and ask the team.
Is it possible that we could allow students to, again, wear what for example, professional women runners wear on practice that is not on campus, but off campus? Could there at least be a compromise to that degree? Is that legally possible?
They still would be student athletes.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes,
So-
Ms. Warren.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. If the board wants to compromise in that manner, they could do that. We typically do not enforce dress code or pretty much anything with respect to the code of conduct off campus unless there's very specific instances in which we do it. It's, for example, like bullying or hazing. There's provisions that allow us to enforce if it happens off campus, especially if it has an on-campus effect to it. So, and just as a practical matter, our principals aren't going to be out there policing, or our administrators aren't going to be out there policing off-campus conduct. So if we wanted to put in there practice in uniforms and game uniforms when worn on campus have to align with FHSAA, I think that's within the board's authority.
Just a point of clarification, Member Vanos. So when we were talking about uniforms, we said there's a lot of students out there that wear their uniforms to class. A lot of those uniforms might not abide by dress code. I think cheerleading was one of the examples that was given. And so we said we wanted to make it explicit in the policy that they should be allowed to wear whatever it is their sports uniform is. Are you saying that you want it to be broader beyond just the uniforms? You're saying anything that is athletic and comfortable that they would use for practice, not just their uniforms, to be allowed during the day of school?
No, this is related to the conversation we had last time and the students who came. It is for practice off campus. Some coaches are not allowing students to practice, let's say they're running off campus, to not be able to practice in like normal running gear, which would be a sports bra and a shorts. Mm-hmm. And so it's really that. And
so you're saying after school,
right,
the enforcement of the dress
not
code.
On campus. I'm fine. Like on campus, understand, I'm good with that. But what I'm talking about is after school, off campus, practice.
So I think, the concern is more if we are enforcing the dress code in moments where, you're out there in the sand, 95 degrees, and we're saying you're not in dress code. We wanted to make it explicit that it's not just during the day, but after school as well, that this should not be enforced as well.
So if I may, if it's on campus, I think the language is going to be that the approved practice uniforms and game uniforms are going to be expected to comply with it. With respect to off campus, I think we could allow it, but here's the thing. Some coaches may say, and I think the superintendent and her staff want to have some flexibility here. Some of these coaches may say, you know what, I want you practicing in what you're going to play in. And if you're going to have to run in 95 degrees, I want you to run in the attire that when you go to a meet, you're going to have to run in that, just so you get used to being in that uniform during that heat. So some coaches may want to have the authority to say, I want you practicing in what you would have to play in order to get the feel for competition. So I do think we want to leave some flexibility there for a coach to say, yes, I'm not going to police off campus, but they may want to say, I still want you to wear the uniform just because I want you to get used to game conditions.
I understand what you're saying, and I think in some instances that makes sense. I also think that is giving coaches a broad authority to use it for other reasons and other purposes. But if I'm the only one who cares, we all know how I feel. So I'm going to stop talking and let some other people share their comments. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Vanos. We'll figure out, if folks have something else to say on this topic, we can go around. Member Gallo.
Thank you. I agree with Stephanie. First off, I don't know of too many sports that have practice uniforms. Like most my kids played sports, there was no practice uniforms. You wore whatever you wore to practice. So if we put something in language that says they have to wear practice uniforms and they don't have practice uniforms, what will be considered practice uniforms and who's going to pay for the said practice uniforms?
So practice uniforms are, I'll take football and baseball. They're the easiest examples that I can put my hand on, right? Practice uniforms may be shorts for football, but you have shoulder pads, you have some sort of jersey that would allow them to cover the shoulder pads, the helmet, et cetera. Baseball, you may not wear the full uniform top, but you would wear baseball pants, especially if you have to do sliding and all of that kind of stuff. So most of the time the kids provide it. I think and Deputy Superintendent can jump in here if I'm saying this wrong, if we have kids who don't have the ability to afford, things that they can wear in practice, our schools work with them to ensure that they do have stuff to wear to practice if that becomes a barrier, if cost and ability to provide it becomes a barrier. But, basketball's your typical, T-shirt or shorts in order to play. Various sports have various practice uniforms like that.
Thank you, Mr. Pomeroy. I would argue that they do not. I would argue that basketball does not, that track does not, that lacrosse does not, that a lot of like cheerleading. Like they're usually just in short. Like we don't have what we would consider designated uniforms that students only practice in. They practice in a variety of different clothing at each and every practice. They don't wear the same uniform at each practice, especially if you're in the season and you're practicing daily. You're not going to wear the same clothes. And so I would argue that we don't really provide or have like a set uniform that they wear to practice. I think they usually wear what they're comfortable wearing, whether that's in basketball baggy shorts and a tank, or in running or beach volleyball. We just saw an example of what they wear. So I'm just hesitant to add language to our code of conduct that's not explicitly understood or explicitly explained, and therefore could be subject to someone's interpretation.
Thank you, Ma'am.
I have a question. Would, because it says additionally practice uniforms, that's the language that you're talking about?
Yes.
We could change it from uniforms to attire so that it's not a specific uniform, but make it say attire.
Okay. That would
But
ease my
that's
concerns.
still, so practice uniforms and game uniforms are expected to align with competition uniform requirements as outlined by the Florida High School Athletic Association. That assumes that there is attire requirements by the Florida High School Athletics Association, which my guess is there's not. There's uniform, no?
So there is game uniform attire that is required. So if we change the language to say additionally practice attire, and game uniforms are expected to align with competition uniform, I think that would encompass that I can just wear, if I pull up the picture again.
We can go back to me. Member Gao, go ahead. I think we're asking the same question, though.
So for example, if I just wore like a white t-shirt that was similar to their blue t-shirt, and then, blue shorts that's similar to the shorts that they're wearing, that would be acceptable to practice in.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I don't necessarily feel the need to add this language. I mean, as Member Vanos pointed out, we have never had this language in our student code of conduct before, where we're referencing the National Federation of State High School Associations. Like, that's never been in our code of conduct prior. So I would be more comfortable just taking it out. I just don't know why. I think it increases ambiguity, and it could be used to dress code students when they're practicing that I don't feel is necessary. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
I'm up next. So there's two things. So I believe we added the language we added because we wanted to make it clear that it's following the cheerleading thing. I think it's a good thing that we have that language now, because it is explicit for our athletes that they cannot be dress code as long as they are following any of those guidelines. And I from my time back at school, I do remember some cheerleaders getting dress coded or requested to wear additional shorts, or call it yoga pants underneath, just to be in dress code. That wasn't necessary. It was their uniform. So, but it was very unevenly, call it, enforced. So I'm okay with keeping that explicitly saying that during the school day, that is. I think my issue is more along lines of Member Vanos. After school, I don't want coaches to be unevenly enforcing dress code on workout practice attire. Because the reality is, I mean, if you go down Avalon Road and you see the cross-country team running in the middle of summer, this is not even during school. They're practicing, they're preparing to like actually try out. You see it's girls in shorts and their sports bras, and they are like sweating out there. I wouldn't want a coach to suddenly say, hey, you're out of dress code, I need you to put on more clothes just because. everyone drives past Avalon Boulevard every day, and I'm not particularly distracted by their bodies. Like, I don't really understand the why. And so for me, it's more of like, keep the language as is, but I want to make it explicit that coaches don't get to just determine what is in dress code or out of dress code during practice or non-school hours or non-competition hours. As long as, of course, private parts are covered. Like, I'm not saying it's a free-for-all, but I also think that our after-school in 90-degree weather dress code should not be anywhere what is expected inside of a classroom. It's just unrealistic. So fine with the current language. I just think we need to make explicit that you cannot just every individual free-for-all on what is enforced or not enforced after school or during summer hours. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's how I'm viewing it. Member Byrd.
Yes, and I was just going to agree with you on that. And also, boys, at least I see boys have no shirt on either when they're running, cross-country running, training. So, yeah, my question here is, and maybe I think this was shared with us, and I apologize if I missed it, but are there guidelines, FHSAA guidelines for practice attire? Or is it just uniform attire?
It says practice attire, and the FHSAA takes their directions from the NFHS, who sets the standards for uniforms and practice attire.
For practice attire?
Yes, it
Okay.
says that the practice should mimic what's worn in competition.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. I don't know where to go from. I don't have a. No one's really reached out to me that this is a problem. So I don't. My preference would be to just have it in there for the uniforms during the day. My feeling is the code of student conduct is to make sure that learning is happening and that behaviors are not getting in the way of learning. And I don't know why I don't even think we need to have practice in there. I understand that there was some concerns that girls may be targeted during practice, but I also feel like putting this in the code of conduct adds another layer of extra accountability that we may not unintentionally want. So, yeah, I'm gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna ask for some other input from other board members. I don't really see why we need to add this to our dress code. I don't think this has been a huge problem, but maybe I've just missed it. Sorry.
Thank you, Member Byrd. Member Douglas.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to say we do need dress codes during the day for students.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. And just like Member Salamanca said, dress code is to learn. I mean, we just make sure that the kids are focused on learning and no other things. But during practice, outside of school hours, I think we should let the student dress comfortably to play. Of course, there's limited, they need to be covered at least a little bit, but we need to how can we adjust in a way that we can say that during practice, kids should be dressed comfortably so that they can perform and play. So I don't know if we can use that comfort level to add to this to make it lawful. I mean, I don't know how do you call it, the code of conduct. The comfort of the kids is important, but at a certain level. That we don't have only like sports bras. I'm just trying to figure out how we can make it happen.
Yeah.
If we add the comfort part of it.
Thank you, Member Douglas. Doug Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I do want to point out that in my time as chief of high schools, you will come across coaches that do follow those Florida High School Athletic Association bylaws that have also been adopted by the National Federation. So it will be challenging to put something in policy that we can't enforce. So you do have some coaches that do, speaking of practice attire, do want a certain look. There is a philosophy out there that it brings a level of cohesion amongst the teams. And it's challenging to kind of speak of individual sports because each one is different and each one is unique. But I did want to point out to you that that is something, from overseeing all of our high schools for some time, that within athletics, there are, certain philosophies and visions that coaches have for their teams in terms of creating that unity and that discipline. So it is something that we definitely want to consider as we do follow FHSA and the bylaws within the National Federation. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Front.
Thank you. I am with Member Byrd on this one. I feel a little neutral. I haven't heard a lot of issues except the ones that were voiced at the last school board meeting. I can understand the frustration, but at the same time, I think our our code of conduct really is for the school day, is the way I view it. It's what we want to make sure really after hours or after school. Maybe that is something that we can ask the superintendent to discuss with our the athletics department and make sure that they are all on board and discussing that well. I think when we put too many stipulations within a code of conduct, all of a sudden it just it can tie people's hands, and sometimes it has unnecessary consequences, that unintended consequences. So for me, I just think as long as I feel like we could just eliminate the whole practice thing and all of that and keep it as they need to, like they would be allowed to wear it if it is part of the, like there's a wear your uniform to school day, that type of thing, or if it's on a Friday and the cheerleaders are asked to wear a uniform, but maybe the principal says to them, you're allowed to wear it during first period, but then you do need to change after. But I think it should be up to the principal, to get that approval.
Thank you, Member Front. I don't know if it's easier just to add a line that is during the school day and after school. Maybe it's up to the coach and principal's discretion what the practice attire is, just to make it explicit that it's two different things. I think my only concern with the current wording is I don't want that to be read as enforcement after school or during non-school hours. So that's one. I don't want someone to read the code of conduct and say this applies to after school or summer practice or whatever, because that is not the intention of this board from what I'm hearing. So I don't know what that means in terms of language. I also can't find it, so I would be helpful, we don't have to do this now, but if you can send us the language of what attire is under what you're mentioning, maybe on there it's more broad or more flexible or less specific, right? So, because it's not uniforms. We know these students are not running in their uniforms for cross country. They're just not. I've seen them. The boys really don't wear shirts. So whatever that, maybe we just need visibility into that. Or the second thing, if we don't think this is a problem, then we should be able to pull the numbers on if there's students getting dress code in sports or after school. Do we track that? Like how many students get dress code during school or after school?
We wouldn't be able to distinguish, but we could find out about dress code violations, but And
I think that's maybe the problem. Like, I wouldn't be happy to see a dress code form come in and it happened to be at 5 p.m. running practice. Like, that's not what the dress code is intended for. So I just think in the current version of what we wrote, that distinction is not clear. So that's my concern, that it's just going to be enforced unevenly after school or during practice. So whatever it is we can do to fix the language, I think that's the intention of the board. But obviously, whatever your recommendation is to make that happen, that's okay. If there is language we can refer to that is more standard, but also not a uniform, that's great too. But I haven't been able to find it. Anyone else? Member Vanas.
Thank you. Just closed out. I mean, I think that's the key. It's just what is happening after school is not what we're trying to target with the dress code. So to the extent you just need a consensus statement, yes, I think that's what we're trying to address. And I don't think you will find what you're looking for if you are looking for dress coding after school, because what happens is the coach just says, don't wear that. And so it's not as if it's written up or it's going to address, you're not going to be able to track that information. And so that is another reason why it is so unevenly enforced, because we don't even know. So just to add to that. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we will work to change the language and present some options.
Thank you. Just to one last clarification, is the board okay with keeping the current wording for during school uniform language? Okay, so we're good with that. I think we just feel that the after school practice part is not addressed yet.
Okay.
So procedurally, if I can ask a question.
Yes.
When we come up with language, I think we are on track to approve the code in June at our June meeting, right?
That's correct.
So my plan is to, once we come up with the language, to circulate it to you all to see if there's any strong objections to the language that we circulate. And then, we'll incorporate if we don't see, strong objections. But is that okay with board members if that's the procedure we utilize?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Is the board okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything else? Oh, Ron, Member Gallo, one last minute surprise.
Thank you. The student use of micro mobility devices. I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Would it be possible or under our authority to require that students wear a helmet while, like if you're going to come on school campuses with this type of micro mobility devices, that you must wear a helmet in order to ride these to school? I know that the law quite hasn't caught up yet, but I just this week had somebody fly past me on a bike going extremely fast on a sidewalk, about knocked somebody over on a sidewalk, had no helmet, and had I not seen him in time, I would have hit him. And if I would have hit him with no helmet, I don't know that person would survive. I mean, it's becoming such a huge problem. So I don't know if that's within our authority to say, hey, if you want to ride your scooter, your e-bike, or whatever you want to ride to school, we want you to wear a helmet.
So with respect to, before they get to our campus, obviously, we can't regulate their conduct, right? I think we can say the expectation is you're going to wear a helmet while you're on campus utilizing it, but I think our language is, if I remember correctly, that they're not riding it once they get to campus.
Correct.
They're getting off when they get on campus.
I thought I would ask because I just really want these young people to wear a helmet. I just really, really want them to wear a helmet.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gallo. We're still talking about the student code of conduct, which includes micromobility. So if there's anything here, if not, others, we'll wrap it up and move it to the use of electronic resources, which is I have a comment actually about this. I don't think right now the code of conduct is the best place to use it, because I think we need to be talking about the micromobility policy on its own, and I know that's kind of a separate thing, and we're waiting for some state guidance on it. I did unfortunately have a student pass away over the weekend due to getting hit in a micromobility device. When you get hit and you're going 40 miles per hour with no protection, it is a very dangerous thing. This is the second student in District 2 this year that has died because of micromobility devices. So I brought this up many times to the board. I'm very, very concerned. I'm doing everything I can in my district. I'm going to have a town hall meeting with Commissioner Keene. I'm going to bring OPD. I'm going to try everything I can to get parents to understand that. At the same time, I've talked to principals, and principals say it is really hard to enforce this. It is really hard to have enough staff out there at the beginning of the school day or after school day saying, get off your e-bike, get off your scooter, put on a helmet. There just is not enough staff to enforce that. And the educational component is just not enough. And so I think they're incredibly dangerous. I hate getting the calls where a student gets hit or is really critically hurt going to school or from school, when I know that I can just, I personally want to just ban these things from our campus. They can use it outside of school, I don't care. But much larger conversation. I'm going to continue to bring it up in the context of whatever we decide there, but it is very fresh in my mind. These things are incredibly dangerous. And so I'm a little sick of getting those calls, and this year has been particularly rough in my district. So, Member Front.
Thank you. I am trying to find in the code where we have this listed, but I know last time we were discussing when something occurs in a classroom or in a lunchroom, and then students are pulled in to give a report, share their firsthand account of what happened. And we had discussed whether we wanted to make it mandatory for principals to contact the parent prior to speaking with that child and getting their, why am I forgetting the name of this? You guys know what I'm talking about? Witness statement. My goodness. I don't know why that was just not coming to my mouth. So the witness statement, I spoke with the principal team, OCASA, and then one of the principals in my area, and he really just made it very clear that if we were to create that, if we put that into the code, which we would basically be tying their hands. It prolongs the process. It creates more issues than benefits. And while I fully support engaging parents and making sure that they're aware, there are many instances where my own kids have been given a witness statement because they saw something, and maybe it was just something simple, but it's not I think for me, instead of putting it in the code of conduct, I think, again, that's something that we need to talk with the superintendent, have her team really make sure that principals are, them and then their team, whether it's the dean or whoever, are very well trained. When I do hear complaints with witness statements, it's from parents who feel like their child was interrogated and their child was brought into a room, the door shut, and they felt intimidated. That's where I think that's really more of a training, not necessarily saying the parent needs to be there and a part of the process. Does that make sense? As a parent, I want to be informed. So I think letting parents know, hey, your child gave a witness statement, this is what it was, and letting them know. But I think just informing, having the superintendent and her staff really train the school teams where they bring the kids in and hey, buddy, you're not in trouble. We just need to know, were you there? Did you see anything happen? And so within the code, hopefully I didn't just ramble all of that. And does that make sense? Can you show me where in the code
It's page 9.
Yeah, it's first on page 3 at the first bullet point. It gives the parents the option to opt out of the discipline investigation, and then it explained in more detail on page 9.
And is this new?
No.
If I can just, I'm sorry. If I can just add, so what we were proposing to add is for students grades K through 2, that administrators make every attempt to notify parents. We hear a lot from K through 2 parents that they would like to know when their kid is going to write a statement. So that's how we're adding K through 2, so they can attempt to notify the parent before the kids are writing a statement.
Okay. So right now, the way it is written, it wouldn't cause like a pause where they couldn't do any kind of witness statement until they get.
No, the way that it's written currently, they would try to call, leave a message, but they still would move forward with the investigation.
Perfect. Okay. So I think that's the part. I just want to make sure that we're not tying a principal's hands and making them all of a sudden not be able to move forward. When it is a K2, a kindergartner, I'm assuming, is not going to be writing the witness statement. So is it more like they're listening and then, whoever it is, the dean or so, whatever, they're listening and then they take notes and say, I'm, speaking with the child, this is what they say they saw, or?
Yes, so they usually write on the witness statement, transcribed by the dean. So the dean will listen to what the student is saying, write it down, and say that this was transcribed by the dean.
Perfect. Thank you. So I just want to definitely make sure that we are, revisiting. I know some of those positions change from time to time, like new people coming in. So just making sure that yearly they are being reminded to have, to not make it an interrogation room, but really it's just a welcome space that it's like you're going and talking with dad, or, you know what I mean? Like just more of a family friendly instead of kids feeling like they were interrogated.
Yep. Every year, the entire team, principals, APs, deans, get training during the summer, and we also provide additional training throughout the year. So we'll make sure we add that to both trainings.
Yes.
Reinforce it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Member Front. Member Vanos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just keeping with this same line, I'm fine with the new language that's in there. I also found it helpful to meet with principals and hearing how kind of investigations and this sort of thing actually happen. I would. One change that I have is rather than requiring the written note, I think it would be more helpful to parents if it's an opt-out that they can just sign at the beginning of the year, because they may not know that they can even really do this unless they're reading the Code of Student Conduct carefully, which I don't think most parents probably do. But if it was just added to that opt-out, that they could, if they don't want their child to participate, they can just simply opt out there. And then so that's just one idea, to just make parents more aware of their ability to do that. And then the second piece on micromobility, again, may not be the right forum to have this conversation, but I agree with Member Salamanca. I am open to, I mean, our students are dying. We can do something about it, and I think we should. I would, whether we look at a temporary ban while we figure this out, whether it's maybe just for elementary and middle school, I am open to that conversation, and I think we should have it, and I think we should have it soon.
For the school year?
Definitely before the new school year starts. Yeah, so I just wanted to voice my support for continuing that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vanos.
Just for a point of clarification, so this is new language. If it is the board's pleasure for us to remove this language, because the first line does says OCPS permits students to park. If you guys do not want them on campus, this language can be removed, because this is completely new language. It's not currently in a code.
I know the timing is tricky because the code of conduct for the upcoming year is the one we're discussing right now, but also the micromobility conversations ongoing at the state. So I think, Mr. Pomeroy, is there any advice you have for us to address this conversation without holding up the code of conduct?
So I want to make sure there's another policy that addresses student parking on campus that says that they are allowed to park scooters and other types of stuff on campus. So I don't want us to, pass anything here that would conflict with that other policy. Right now, we are not in conflict with that policy. If you all want to, I mean, I guess we don't have language with regard to dismounting and walking it currently in the policy that I remember, the other policy, the student parking policy. So I would recommend this staying in here for now. And if we need to come back and address our underlying student parking on campus policy, we can do that later. I want to make sure and not do it right here in this room where I'm rushing an analysis, that we're good to go. So my recommendation, keep this as is. And then if there's any issue that needs to come back to this board, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Member Ronas.
And how would that come back?
I could, what I'll do is I'll identify, hey, I think there is this issue or this conflict between what we have in the code versus what we have in the parking policy. I don't remember there being a conflict. I looked at this, but admittedly, it's been a while ago. So if I go review it, I'll look and say, hey, I've identified this issue, and I think we need to have a work session on it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I'll have a clarification on that later. But Angie Gall, Member Gall.
Thank you. Moving back to parental notification when we do witness statements, I know we had discussed possibly like highlighting, like maybe putting in bold that they can refuse to do so. They don't have to fill out a witness statement, or even possibly on the witness statement putting in like a little box that says, I want you to contact my parent. Is that something we're still thinking of doing?
That is correct, yes. And so that page 3, I believe, is usually like our highlights of what's the big issues in the code. So
Okay.
it wouldn't require parents to like deep dive in the code, but we could make that second sentence bolded if that's your will.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
And then we can add it also to the witness statement, call my parent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Douglas.
I like that idea of the box and to check it in or out. And I also wanted to see if we could insert a letter to have the parents being able to opt out if they don't want their kids to be. If they don't sign that letter, that means we can actually, go ahead and question the kids without the parents. If they want, just have it when we give the code of conduct to the parents with a letter included in there to say if they want to opt out of not having, they can sign the letter and we can put it aside, and we know that we cannot interrogate this kid without the parents. So we don't have to call or anything. We already have the letters that saying that we should or we could not do it.
We actually stopped printing the code for parents years ago. Currently, I think.
We can write it also electronically, a letter where they can, sign electronically saying, I do not want you to, for my kids to be interrogated without my consent. And if they don't sign the letter, then, we can question the kids. We have documentation that the parents did not sign the letter, so we can interrogate the kids without any problems. Mm-hmm. We have documentation.
Yes, we can create a letter for parents to opt out.
Yeah.
But as Member Farrant said earlier, the investigation would still continue.
Yeah, still ongoing.
In most cases, we will be unable to wait for that parent if that parent is saying, hey, I want to come in, but I can't do it for a week. The investigation will continue.
Yes,
Right.
yes. But in the meantime, we have documentation that the parents opt out. So
Yes, we can create
do
that.
the work.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Member Byrd.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to continue the discussion, but I too met with OCASA. I understand their concerns. My concern with this is always, since the first day on this board, with this section has always been my concern for who's watching out for students that could possibly criminally thank you, incriminate themselves with their statement. And like I've said before, every adult knows you don't talk to someone about something that you personally may be being accused of without a lawyer present. But then we allow these kids who are 14, 15 years old to go into a room and give statements about something they're being accused of without a parent or without an adult. And I understand the law says in loco parentis that that's our job to stand in for a parent, but at that point, my concern is who is the administrator? Is the administrator really standing in for the child, for the parent, for the child, when they are investigating a crime possibly that took place in their school? And what I heard from the principal when we met with OCASA was there's so many investigations every day, and, you know, things like vaping and, you know, maybe a student that said something in a classroom that, that could be considered, you know, like sexual harassment or, you know, things that are not criminal, okay? And those I do not have a problem. Like, pull kids in, get witness statements, like, do those investigations. My concern is when it is something that could be criminally significant. I would want my child sitting in a room without me making statements. Just because they're kids and they don't always, you know, they could easily say something and then the adult writes it down, and then it could be used in a court of law. Am I correct from the lawyers at the table? I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking. So that's where my concern from this is always taken. So I don't know if anyone else shares that view, but this is where my problem with this section of the code has always been. And maybe what it is maybe, as you guys say, if it's more apparent in the beginning of the year, and I'm thinking when parents do the checklists at the beginning, the check boxes on Skyward, including like library checkout, all those things you have to do, why can't we have this be one of them? Do I want, you know, permission for photos, all those things? Do I want my child to be questioned or investigated for an activity without me, yes or no, that kind of thing. I mean, granted, it will make probably a lot more parents say, no, call me first, or I want to be there, but maybe we could even preface it by law enforcement activity. I don't know. And John, I don't know even if or Dimitri, when it is something that's criminal, is it a school administrator that's doing that questioning, or is it's law enforcement that's doing it?
Yeah, I was going to say that. So if it's something that is rising to a level of a criminal investigation, law enforcement takes over, school steps out. Sometimes they do sit in so that, you know, somebody could be there with the student that's familiar with the student, but it's completely law enforcement's investigation at that point.
Okay, so, and a law enforcement would, obviously, I would assume, say.
So, yeah, law enforcement would say if they are a suspect in a crime, they then have to Mirandize the student. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you can say can and will be used against you. So if they are a suspect in a crime,
okay,
police have to say that. If police don't say that and the student incriminates themselves, then that confession without the Miranda warning is going to be tossed out because it would be a violation of their due process.
And in
Okay.
those instances, we do have policies in place where we ask law enforcement if the parent could be contacted. If they, depending on what they say, yes or no, we will contact the parent. And if they tell us no, then we contact the parent afterwards and say, your student was questioned by law enforcement. Here's the person you need to contact.
Okay, thank you. That does make me feel better. What about like Title IX investigations? Those are also, parents are also contacted for those, correct? When those investigations, because those are long, drawn-out processes, so.
Yes, parents of both the victim and the alleged offender are contacted.
Are usually brought in to the
yes.
school, and yeah, okay. Okay, that makes me feel better. Thank you. It relieves my heartburn on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Byrd. I'm up next. So Why is it that we decided K through second, not K through third? Like, is there a reason for the second cutoff?
That was the feedback that we got from a lot of parents. It was mostly K through 2 parents that were questioning why.
Got it. Okay. And then clarification question on the actual statements when we take them from students K through second. Are those, like, I know some of these things come to us to the board, so I've seen kind of like the written thing. Are those written by the students? Is there an adult writing it on behalf of the student? Like, what's the workflow there?
It varies. It depends on the student's level of understanding and how well they can write. So if that student is able to articulate and write what they want to say, then they'll be allowed to write it. If they're not, then the adult will write it for them and write on the statement that it was transcribed by the adult, so that we know it's the student's words, but the adult wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, if that happened to my kid, I would not be happy. But I share the same concern with the board, right? I understand high school, understand middle, I understand the administrative burden that we would ever put. I mean, we all get the fast scores on ELA, right? Level 3 and below, 40%-ish of our students are level 3 or below. I'm doing that math right. I just reversed it. I would not want my student who's a level 1 or level 2 on a fast test ELA for first, second, and third grade writing a statement or even saying, I would worry deeply about that student's self-incrimination or ability to be influenced, or did you see this student do that? Isn't that right? Like, I hate every part about this, always have, specifically for the younger students in particular. So I am with Member Byrd. I think when I was talking to folks, if we could we have parents opt out of pictures on a checkbox. This feels so much more serious to me than if my kid can be in a picture like disclosure, that I would love to have that be an opt out. I get why we do it. They're the witness when something bad happens, but they're still very small kids. I mean, they're incredibly susceptible, and having like any form of due process for them under third grade is just, I have a really hard time seeing how there isn't just an imbalance of power no matter what we do in this. And so I would love a more explicit opt-out that is independent of the code of conduct. So I'm happy with the language. Let's keep it as is. A parent can send it, but I would want to have some form of opt-out from K through second. Because we still, I mean, even if we don't have a criminal investigation, it's not like a level 3 or a level 4 doesn't impact an academic record of a student. And so even maybe we put it up, right? Like maybe it doesn't happen at a level 1 or a level 2. And this was my recommendation when I chatted. Maybe it is only of you will not talk to my student, or my student will not self-incriminate at a level 4 or level 3. Like, that is serious. It's going to impact them. I don't not want to be in the room when they're going to be at risk of that. And so I would be okay with splitting a level 1, level 2 versus a level 3, level 4. I think that's a very different impact to a student's outcome. So that would be my recommendation.
So the concern with the level is that you have to do an investigation in order to determine what level of offense it meets. So you would still need the witness statements first before you determine what level it is. But we could add the opt-out to the...
But when a teacher writes a level 4 referral in first grade and then writes a thing, it sends it up, someone else decides that it's a level 4.
Correct.
But you kind of know what you're going to investigate for, right? Like, the list of things on level 4, they're pretty straightforward, no?
No, not necessarily.
Like, I know there's some that are progressive, that's different, but there's some things that go straight to a level 4 that I think are very explicit. If a teacher writes that sounds like the accusation of a level 4.
Okay, so teachers just write on the top of the
Without putting the
referral
level.
what the alleged accusation is, so provide a description, but the discipline team is the one that actually will code it and see what it is coded as. And that is based on witness statements, because a teacher could think that it's, level 4 harassment, but then based on the witness statements, then it's only a level 1 harassment, for example.
Yeah. It's a hard one. But at the very least, I would love an opt-out for parents.
Yes, so we can do the, you just let us know your pleasure. We can create a letter, or on those parental
Skyward.
notification forms, we
I
can.
think the Skyward notification form, the way we have it for the photography,
Okay.
that would be my preference. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just wanted to also point out, too, in addition to just the student code of conduct with regards to the parent opt-out process, there's also now new systems in place where we do have parent videos and also parent square messaging that goes out to families, because I know this has been a point of discussion in the past. And also, my second point with regards to the witness statements, I just wanted to share with you that when an investigation is initiated, our expectation is that communication and documentation occur consistently with a high level of fidelity. So, it's incumbent upon our teams to make sure that we're actively monitoring these situations to ensure that school-based administrators are informing the appropriate parties in a timely manner. So that is something that we will continue to monitor very closely to ensure that investigations are done accordingly to our expectations.
Makes sense. Member Front.
Thank you. Okay, no, so not to belabor this, but what if we were to move it to like, if a child is the one being accused, let's say they're the ones that are up for the level, yeah, the investigation. They're the ones that they would then need, we would really advocate to get a parent in the room for that witness, but you'd have a day or two maybe, right? I don't know. I know maybe this really is putting more pressure, but as far as witnesses, that's different. And it's not like they're accusing them, you know what I mean? They wouldn't be incriminating themselves.
It happens.
Oh, I got you.
It does happen sometimes where, yeah, it happens.
Okay. Well, we'll let it go. I think I agree that you really want to make sure parents are there. And I feel like as long as the schools are doing a good job of really trying to contact parents, do we have any kind of data showing how many parents don't respond and how many parents do respond to those phone calls, or not really?
No.
Because it'd be nice to know, maybe we're up here really arguing this fact, and most parents are responding. So I think just making sure that a parent is notified prior to it happening and giving them a little bit of time to respond would be awesome. But just wanted to go back to I want to make sure that it is in here. I wasn't seeing it, but for Orange County Virtual School, I know we had discussed last time that if a child receives a level 4, before we said that they wouldn't be allowed to even attend Orange County Virtual. Where in the code does it say that they would be allowed to now?
So we took the language out that they would not be able to enroll in Orange County Virtual. I pulled it up. It's on page 36, and it's going to be step 9. And so it now reads, it's important to note once the student is withdrawn from their home school, the only OCPS school the student may attend is the school designated by the area administrator at the DTM. So the team felt that that language would cover the area administrator assigning that student to to OCVS.
Okay, so either one, they can just ask the parent, what would you prefer, and then.
Yes, so for clarification, the board can let us know if you want options or if you would like the team to determine, I guess, what offenses would go to OCVS versus positive pathways.
Can you guys hear me?
No.
Okay. So next year, when we have a DTM, area administrators would give the parent an option of OCVS or positive pathways. When we say having certain offenses, that is your decision, but if I can just add, I think that would kind of make it maybe somewhat unfair, because as a parent, they may want to know why certain offenses have the option, because parents do talk, and certain offenses, they do not have the option. A lot of parents will probably continue to go to positive pathways because some parents don't want their kids to be at home. And then the parents that want OCVS are the ones that's probably trying to go to OCVS now. I think it's probably going to be the same. So I don't know if we want to say that we want to have certain offenses go to positive pathways versus certain offenses going to Orange County virtual. But it's whatever you guys
Personally,
want us
I
to
don't.
do.
I just think it needs to be maybe a team effort where the parent and I mean, I can think of one situation right now in my district where a student brought on a knife unbeknownst to him, and it was like in a backpack that he had used for hunting, grabbed the backpack, totally didn't realize it was there, is basically out of school for a year. I'm sure that family would have preferred Orange County virtual, but because they didn't have the option, now they were kind of put in a bind. So not every family wants to send their kid to positive pathways. So maybe it is just then, so this language will help create, like, it doesn't put any kind of stipulations, but provides the option.
Correct, yes.
I just want to make sure that parents know they have the option. I think that's
They will
important.
know that at the DTM. The area administrator will give them the option.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Member Fraun. Member Vanos.
Thank you, and thank you, Member Front, for actually bringing this back up. I don't think it's clear from this that the parent has the option, so I think we need more clarity, because this makes it sound like the area administrator makes the determination and not anyone else. So I think if our intent is that the parent can make the choice, then I think we need to include that in this language, because it is not clear reading this language that that's what's happening. Just my 2 cents. I also have a question. I mean, is that how you're reading
Question
it?
for Paul Marini? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the board wants to make clear that the parent has the option to enroll, that's the policy choice, we're going to have to say, I guess it would be once discipline is complete, if we're looking here at step 7, the parent has the option to enroll in Orange County Virtual School in lieu of I'll have to come up with it, but in lieu of the placement at positive pathways. If that's the board's policy desire, we can create a sentence that says that.
Which, I mean, I thought that was our conversation. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought that was the conversation last time.
Yeah. So we can clear up the language and just put in a sentence that'll take care of it. That says the parent will have the choice to choose Orange County Virtual School as their alternative placement.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And I had just one other question. Going back to Member Byrd's questioning about criminal investigation, can a student's statements that they provide to an administrator at a school, can those statements be used against them in a criminal investigation?
So, I'm sorry, I don't know if you were looking for direction from Mr. Pomeraney.
No, you're a former state attorney. Have at it.
So we do not use those student statements. Law enforcement has their own statement that they would provide to that student to make a statement. So our specific statements would not be used, but if law enforcement is investigating and that student makes statements, they could use those statements. So it would not be like we're handing over our witness statements to law enforcement.
Can the information obtained from a school administrator, staff teacher, can that information be used can that information be given to law enforcement? So maybe, so I guess what I'm trying to ask is, maybe they're not getting the exact statement that the student made in the school but can information that the school gets from the student, from the witness statement or whatever, or from the student themselves, can that be used to give to law enforcement?
Law enforcement can list a dean or administrator or whoever took the statement as a witness. The state attorney would then need to provide a subpoena for that person for them to get that information.
So the answer is yes.
Pursuant to a lawful subpoena, yes. If they don't receive a subpoena, it wouldn't just be turned over.
Okay. So I think that does add some context to making sure we're protecting our students in school as well. Just to add to what Member Byrd said, because I know the response to her question was that law enforcement handles criminal investigations, but the reality is what is happening in a school, what a student says, what witnesses say, can be used in a criminal investigation. So I think the point you bring up is very valid, and I feel like it's something that's concerning to me. I think it merits further discussion, but I also, so one thing, and then also want to, again, request that we have that opt-out form, and it sounds like there is a consensus for that, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just for clarification, they still would not get the witness statement because there are hearsay and exceptions that for the witness statement to come in, but if the accused student made statements pursuant to a lawful subpoena, that person can be a witness.
Right, so there's so I guess, yeah, the bottom line is there's information from a school that can be used in a criminal investigation.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vanos. So along those lines, just a point of clarification. So I remember back in the day, we did a change to student conduct where in every offense that had some Florida code equivalent, we added the term must report to law enforcement. And so I'm thinking about threat and intimidation, right? So if I'm a second grader, I am being investigated for threat and intimidation. That's one of those. It's a level 4. It must be reported to law enforcement. But who does the investigation? Law enforcement, or do administrators do that?
So it's reported to the SRO normally, and then the SRO will give the school guidance on whether they feel like it doesn't arise to the level of a criminal offense, and then they would turn it over to the school.
Got it. Then, I mean, this is kind of where I was saying that I do think, I understand that the teacher writes a thing, there's not quite yet a level on it. But if a teacher writes, the student made a threat, or a student said this student made a threat, we know we're reporting it if we get there, right? But like, I think that's the place where I have issues with the self-incrimination component. Like, we do know when something has to be reported to the state. We're very clear about that. I feel weird that we must report something to the state, aka an SRO, but we're not reporting it to the parent. That the student's going to be doing some witness statement, potentially, about themselves or about others. So, like, that's where it feels weird to me, and why I do think that the levels themselves do matter, because some of this stuff is, yeah, I mean, level 4s, I mean, alcohol, threats to the school, drugs, weapons of possession. Like, some of this stuff we're going to report to law enforcement. Law enforcement's actually going to take it from there. Why do we need the student to self-incriminate, like, before law enforcement comes? Like, why do we have to take that statement from the student without the parent? It just feels like a slippery slope to me, especially on level 4. I'm like, majority of these are like robbery, sexual battery, sexual harassment, drug distribution, hazing. Like, all of these things, I think that I understand that they're not going to get a level full until investigation comes, but it seems pretty clear to me if a student has a vape on them, that's probably level 4. We know where that's heading. We have to investigate, but I wouldn't want us to be like, let's investigate and then tell the parent. So I maybe we don't handle it this year around, but I do think that there is a real difference between certain levels of discipline and how comfortable I am with us taking self-incriminating statements or not. It just doesn't feel like we're protecting the students in this case, and especially K through third. I just have a hard time thinking a student and an adult in that situation isn't on any equal playing field for a criminal investigation when they have a parent that likely could just tell them, just don't say anything, and we'll figure it out. So,
Madam Chair, can I
Yeah.
say something on that? Especially with young students on K through 3, there has to be criminal activity that breaks the law, but there also is another thing that has to be demonstrated, which is mens rea or criminal intent. And for students that young, generally the courts will say they don't have the requisite knowledge to form the requisite criminal intent to be charged with a crime. So even if the act that they did would actually be a crime, law enforcement will generally not prosecute
It will
children
go
that
back to
young
us.
because they don't have the ability to form the requisite criminal intent.
right, so a lot of that goes through us, not them ultimately, but it's still a level 4. Like, again, if a kid makes a threat, if a second grader claims another second grader threatened them, it's a level 4. You have all these witness statements. It just, I don't know. I have a hard time with this one, but let's own the opt-out. I think that's great. I think in the future, if there is some delineation we can make on the level of offenses and how willing we are of part of the process on self-incrimination of students, I think that would be best, really. Again, I know the reading level of these students, their communication level of these students. I just have a hard time that they know half the time what they're saying when they're writing these statements or being asked questions. They're just kids, so that's my, Member Gallo.
Thank you. I want to pivot back to OCVS and positive pathways. I would feel more comfortable if there was something in writing that informed the parents of their choice. So I know that it would be discussed at the DTM and they would offer them the choices between positive pathways and OCVS, but I would personally prefer, as a parent, for it to be cited somewhere that I could refer back to if that does not happen. So I would just prefer, for transparency and clarity, to list the two options that a parent would have for their child if they were to get expelled. That would be my preference, because if it's not written anywhere, how will the parent know? And if, things happen all the time, and I'm just concerned that it might not be communicated to them, and then they have no way to go, wait, you were supposed to give me an option. Well, if they're looking for where they were told that they could have an option, there's no paperwork, there's no paper trail that shows that they do have an option. So I would prefer it be in writing. Thank you.
Yes, we're going to add it to that language in step 9 that talks about the alternative school on page 36.
Thank you, Member Gallo. Member Felder, and then I think that's it.
Thank you so much. And you probably clarified it because I thought about it way back, and so now I'm coming back. And help me to make sure I understand it clearly. Are we saying that if a student does something that's wrong, they have the option to either go to positive pathways or the Orange County Virtual? Is that what we're talking about? So if they commit, give me an example, because if a student does something that's wrong and against the rules, why are they given the option to go to OCVS and not positive pathways? If they have done something that requires that they go there. Maybe I'm missing something. Am I missing something? Okay, for an example, because you all are looking like, what is she talking about? Okay. The kid brings a weapon to school. maybe a knife or whatever, brass knuckles, and they call him in or call her in, and the decision is made to send them to positive pathways, and you're saying that the parent has the choice to say, no, I don't want to go to positive pathway, even though he committed the crime or committed did the thing that was wrong. I want him to go to OCPS. Is that what we're saying? Is he not going to still get the lesson that he needs to get at positive pathway, or is he missing his opportunity for learning? Why are we making this decision? Am I missing something? Is that what we're saying?
Correct. That is what the board would like us to do.
So a child that comes to school with a knife or a gun, even if just a knife.
Not a firearm.
Not a firearm, but just a knife or brass knuckles. I need to understand, brass knuckles or a knife, and he hit somebody with it or cut somebody with it, or just if he brings it. Only just if he brings it.
If he uses it, then that is a full exclusion.
Maybe I'm missing something.
Okay.
He doesn't use it, just brings it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't, he should have an option, I think. He's just brought it. Because I'm just saying, little kids, okay, children maybe in the east part of the district, they may have a bagel and cream cheese, and they have a butter knife. And they're eating their breakfast. My babies, we don't like bagels and cream cheese, some of us. We might have a sausage biscuit and then a little, from McDonald's or whatever, and cut it. And we're 5 or 6 or 7. I think that would be a bit much to send them to. But I'm glad. I bet I'm missing something. Not using it, just bringing it. Okay, no. I'm in agreement. No, they don't need it. No. Let them go to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Furler. Yes, I think we wanted to say the FTE dollars should not exit OCPS in that case.
Yes, it would be only those offenses that currently the consequence would be positive pathways.
Correct, yes.
Or alternative placement.
Understood. We have no one else. Mr. Palmerini.
So I just wanted to, actually did a little bit of research while I was sitting up here with respect to interrogation standards. So remember, for school officials versus police officials, school officials need reasonable suspicion that some sort of criminal activity has occurred, whereas law enforcement needs probable cause to figure out whether some criminal activity has occurred. And they have talked about the requirements with respect to school administrators versus police officers. And the case that I'm looking at is State versus JTD. And in that case, a student received made a statement to their assistant principal that that he was in possession of marijuana. And the court said because that school official was acting in their capacity to do a student investigation under the Code of Conduct, that they are acting as a school official, not a law enforcement official, and that no Miranda warnings, for example, are required there. Now, the case also said, and this one is going to give some of you pause, but this is what the law says, if our SRO happens to be in there witnessing it, but doesn't say anything, that also doesn't require a Miranda warning. What the case says, the mere presence of a law enforcement officer who stands mute is not sufficient to transform a school official's interview into custodial interrogation by law enforcement. Conversely, if the law enforcement officer participates in the interrogation, Miranda warnings would be required. So our officials, our principals, assistant principals, our deans, when they're conducting investigations, they do get to collect student statements. We do not have to give Miranda. If law enforcement starts interviewing the students, they do have to give Miranda because it's now transformed into police custodial interrogation. And I understand, Member Vanos, the concern of can they eventually subpoena records, witnesses to come testify. Yes, they can, but that would occur in a lot of instances for people who witness, comments or statements made by defendants potentially. So this is not unusual, and I don't know that we have our school officials getting subpoenaed all that often. But I'll look at Mickey or Ms. Joyner and Ms. Haynes to confirm that. I don't think school officials are getting subpoenaed very much to testify in criminal cases.
Yes, what I've seen is when, like a battery on a school official, so they're the actual victim, then they will be subpoenaed, or like a firearm. That's all I've seen since I've been here. I haven't seen anything where they're like a random witness.
Helpful. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I believe that is it for the student code of conduct. We'll turn on to Mr. Martinez for IJ and DC.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you once again, Madam Vice Chair. Our district must continuously adapt to a rapidly evolving technological landscape by sustaining secure systems, managing risks, as well as ensuring reliable service delivery. I will now turn it over to Mr. Maurice Dragon to discuss proposed changes to policy IJNDC regarding the appropriate use of artificial intelligence and electronic resources. Maurice?
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Superintendent Martinez, Vice Chair, and members of the school board. Today we will review the draft of the updated appropriate use of electronic resources policy. We made several updates to the beginning of the policy, starting with updating the title to the appropriate use of electronic resources, file name IJNDC. In the policy's introduction, we updated the opening statement to read, "The School Board of Orange County, Florida Board recognizes that artificial intelligence, AI, has the potential to support the educational system, including operations and learning." Within Section B, on the human-centric belief, the text was updated to state, "All high-stakes decisions, including but not limited to student placement, grading, disciplinary actions, and personnel evaluations shall be made by staff." Under the Data Privacy and Cybersecurity heading, we updated Section B to state, "Enterprise tools. Staff shall only use district-vetted, secure AI systems that do not use OCPS data to train public models. The use of open source or unvetted commercial AI models is explicitly prohibited." The guidelines for staff section of the policy was updated as follows. Recently, student town halls focused on AI were held with high school students in every school board member's district. A dominant theme across all town halls was the perceived unfairness of teachers using AI to grade assignments while students were penalized for using it. Students argued that when teachers use AI to grade essays, they lose the nuance of recognizing individual student growth. Furthermore, students shared they believe that AI only generated grading lacks the actionable, personalized feedback necessary for them to actually improve their writing and work. Students across multiple town halls also expressed deep frustration and anxiety over the use of AI detection software. They noted that these tools frequently generate false positives, flagging their original work as AI simply because a student, maybe a strong writer, uses advanced punctuation like the Oxford comma, or includes properly cited quotes, such as in AP seminar courses. Students strongly feel that receiving an automatic 0 based on a flawed software is unjust and requested that teachers be required to use secondary proof, such as checking a document's version history or having a direct conversation with the student. Based on the student feedback, we updated the draft language in the guidelines for staff section to read as follows. Professional responsibility. Educators are responsible for verifying the accuracy, objectivity, and appropriateness of their own AI-generated content and instructional materials before disseminating it. When utilizing approved AI tools to assist with the evaluation or grading of student work, educators must critically review the AI-generated assessment compared to their own direct review of the student's work to ensure fairness and the provision of actionable, personalized feedback rather than relying solely on the AI output. Educators shall ensure that all AI-generated instructional materials align with the state standards and board policies regarding the selection and evaluation of instructional materials. In Section B, Student Discipline, it now reads, while AI detection tools may be used as a reference, they shall not be the sole basis for student disciplinary action. Prior to issuing disciplinary consequences or failing grades for unauthorized AI use, educators shall employ secondary verification methods. These methods may include reviewing document edit history, comparing the submission against baseline writing samples, or conducting a direct conversation with the student to assess their understanding of the submitted content. Instances of student academic dishonesty involving AI shall be addressed in accordance with the CTA contract, the Student Code of Conduct, and board policies. We updated the Guidelines for Students section to mirror the guidelines for staff, focusing on areas of student responsibility when using AI and adhering to the district's rules and procedures. In the student town halls, students expressed a need for the district to clearly define the line between acceptable tutoring and unacceptable cheating. Students find AI beneficial for breaking down complex math problems, brainstorming project ideas, organizing citations, or studying for tests. They agree, however, that using AI to write an entire essay or provide the final answer without understanding the steps is cheating. Students specifically mentioned tools such as Khanmigo, the AI inside of Khan Academy, which guides them through the steps of a problem rather than just giving them the answer. The responses from students reflected a need for policy language to recognize the use of authorized AI for these supplementary tutoring functions so students are not afraid to use district-approved study aids. The Guideline for Students section now states, A, verification. Students utilizing authorized AI tools shall verify the accuracy of their own AI-generated content. And B, academic integrity. Students are responsible for adhering to the Student Code of Conduct regarding academic honesty and the use of AI to generate work submitted as their own. The use of authorized AI tools is permissible following the lesson guidelines identified by their teacher, providing the final submitted work represents the student's original thought and effort. While the policy prohibits AI chatbots for emotional support, students during the student town hall shed light on why they use it. Students may turn to AI because they feel they have no safe, trusted adult on campus, or fear that that speaking to a mandated reporter, like a guidance counselor, will result in their parents being called or their privacy being violated. While they recognize AI is not human and will just tell them what they want to hear, they use it because it is available 24/7 and does not judge them. Students also stated that taking away AI emotional support without providing a better, more trustworthy human alternative will only isolate further vulnerable students. The prohibited uses section was updated as follows. The following uses of AI are strictly prohibited. A, harassment and impersonation. The use of AI to generate deepfakes, voice cloning, or synthetic media to impersonate, harass, bully, or mislead others. B, copyright infringement. Using AI tools to generate content that infringes on copyright, trademark, and intellectual property rights. C, emotional support. Using AI chatbots to substitute for human companionship or on district-approved devices. This includes relying on AI companions that utilize emotional memory to simulate personal relationship as distinct from AI educational tutors. Students seeking emotional guidance or coping strategies should be directed to approved supports and trusted adults. District-approved tools, if any, may be used under defined safeguards. And finally, the professional learning provision of the AI policy remains unchanged. At this time, I'll turn the presentation back over to the Deputy Superintendent for comments and questions for the school board.
Thank you, Maurice. And it was really, really helpful to have the student town hall meetings across the district. I think it was fascinating to see the same themes come up over and over again in every high school, regardless of, obviously, the students are not communicating with each other. So the themes were very clear. So thank you for sending out those notes. Member Vanos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sure we'll go back a few times, so I just want to start off with a couple of questions. Starting on page 2, for the human-centric, I'll start off by saying this. I appreciate that we did the town halls, and my town hall in my district was honestly, it was extremely sad. Hearing students struggle with these issues in real time, many of them feeling like AI was their only option to get support that they needed, was sad. And there was a real, at least in mine, a real desire to have more human interaction. I mean, that was really what I took from these was we don't really want AI. We feel forced to use it in some circumstances, but many of them said we're overwhelmed by screens. Like, it's too much. And I had a administrator sitting next to me who shared that in their high school, one of their areas went back to paper and pen for the most part, and they've seen their scores increase this year. So I just want to start there. Okay. So looking at the piece on the human-centric belief, in final approval, you've included high-stakes decisions. I think it is also important to include IEPs. I would support including that as not being allowed to just use AI to complete those forms. And also personal things, such as student recommendation letters. Teachers, a recommendation letter that is generated by AI is meaningless. So I think that is important to include in there as well. Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask about was, okay, so it's just about the using AI detection for student writing. There was a lot of discussion in my town hall about this. A lot of students feeling, a lot of students feeling, well, what is the point of me even writing something if a teacher is going to run it through, two parts. If a teacher is going to run it for AI grading, which is interesting because the day before I spoke to a teacher who said, what is the point of me spending my weekends reading student essays when they just use AI to write the essays? So I think there is on both sides this feeling like, well, why should I put in the effort if you're not putting in the effort? And I'm not sure that the policy really provides a good answer to that. I mean, we'll work through it. I'm curious to see what other people say. I honestly don't think the policy answers that very well. And let's go to the using the AI detection systems. And I see we've included in here that a teacher cannot rely on, solely on an AI detection to, accuse a student of improperly using AI. What I see here are then adding more burdens on our teachers. Like, I guess this is the point. I feel like in order to allow our students to use AI, we are creating all of these other administrative and instructional tasks for something that is supposed to make us more efficient. I think that's just my bottom line. I appreciate that we are trying to create a policy. I appreciate that we recognize that people are using AI. I don't think AI is all bad. I really don't. I think there can be really great uses for it. I don't think a great use is in the K-12 education system for the most part. It's not to say if someone in the business world or someone for workforce training has an idea of how we can incorporate AI into schools, I welcome them. I welcome their resources. I welcome their financial resources to come have an after-school program. Like, let's, show us how you're using AI in your industry. Like, I get that. Like, I welcome that. I think there are some good uses for it. I can go sentence by sentence, but I feel like we are taking something that is supposed to be making us more efficient and actually making us all less efficient. So I'm going to let my other members continue while I gather my thoughts on specific questions, but I think there are better uses of our time that actually have to do with core education and foundational education pieces for our students than trying to manage something that I think we are going to find is impossible to control. Thank you.
Gallo.
Thank you. So, AI is a tricky discussion. I do believe that we have to have guardrails in place or a policy in place that kind of dictates where we go. I really appreciated the student town halls. I thought that, especially the one I went to, the kids were awesome at Timber Creek, and they were very thoughtful and had a lot of ideas and a lot of information, and clearly very familiar with the uses of AI. So I don't have a problem with AI as long as it's being used as a production tool. I think that's the appropriate use of AI. If it can make and take burdens off the plates of our staff members, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, I think that's appropriate use. So I disagree with Member Vanos a little bit about the IEPs. I think that's an example, a perfect example of how AI can really streamline the process and make the job more efficient for our staffing coordinators or our teachers, but there has to be a personal touch to it. So it's like when you use AI to generate the IEP, you still have to review it, go over it, and confirm that the output is correct, right? Because the outputs are really based on the inputs and the prompts. So you have to still review it to make sure that it's accurate. And so I think it's okay in uses like that for AI. When it comes to kids or grading, I'm less likely to support using AI as a grading tool, only because I feel like that you may miss something in translation. When AI is grading your products, you're not getting a sense of a student's writing skill, of where they may need improvement or where they're needing more information. I just think that, and I get that teachers are frustrated because kids are using AI, but if you're reading the essays from students, you can tell a student's pattern of writing. Like, there's a distinct pattern to students writing, like there's a distinct pattern to adults writing. And if you're grading those essays on your own, you're going to very quickly understand the pattern of that writing from that student. So if that student writes something and then switch to AI, it's going to be extremely obvious, I believe, to the teacher that this isn't the normal writing. And it's not because of the Oxford commas, which, by the way, I use. I love the Oxford comma. It's just, it's the tone of the essay, it's the verbiage, the words that they use. AI tends to be a little bit more succinct and a little bit more elevated, that kids may not be used to. So I think as long as you're grading it, I think you can tell if you know your students. Now, it gets a little tricky, I know, in the secondary level when you're trying to grade so many papers. But I would be less likely to really want that to be the norm when we're grading work. I also think that AI literacy is important. I think that what we know today is that students need to be AI literate as they move into the workforce. I think that the skilled workforce is demanding it, and they have to know what that AI literacy looks like. And so I'm all for teaching about AI literacy to our students. And I think AI literacy is a different bucket than one-to-one digital devices, because I think everybody knows how I feel about digital devices in K through 8. And so I just want to make that distinction, that it's two different buckets. You can be AI literate and still not be on a computer all the time. And I think that that's a distinction that we must make, and we do need to educate our students on AI literacy. Moving on with regards to using it as a emotional support, I want to be cautious here, and I get that we shouldn't be, that AI is a bot, right? And it does tell you what you want to hear. I mean, I've put stuff into AI before, and it tells me how smart I am. I'm like, you don't know if I'm smart enough. I could be dumb as a box of rocks, and I just gave you a good prompt. Like, you don't know. So I understand that we have to be careful with that, but I want to caution us on putting, how do I want to say this, about us reprimanding a child who may use AI as a form of emotional support. Like if they're asking them questions, if they're struggling with their identity, especially with the laws that we have placed in Florida, where if you go to talk to a person, they have to notify their parents, and there may be something that they don't want their parents to know. And it could be a slew of reasons. It could be they're struggling with their sexual identity. It could be that they're pregnant. It could be that they're abused. It could be a lot of things. And so I do not want us to reprimand a child who's struggling and the only place they really felt comfortable going was to AI chatbots. What I would prefer us to do is, I know that we have Gaggle, I know that we have other instances, and I guess my question is, would Gaggle or one of the programs that we have, would it pick up if a child is speaking to an AI chatbot on our computer? Would it pick it up and notify someone that this student is struggling and that this student really needs to talk to a social worker or a licensed mental health counselor? Like, I would prefer that the AI gets flagged and then someone approaches the student to talk to them versus us reprimanding the child for looking for some sort of answers or what to do. And I say that because they're going to use it, and I don't want them. I want them to be supported if they're really in crisis. And I can think of many things with the laws in Florida. Where a child might feel like they're in crisis and they're too scared to turn to their parents. They don't want to turn to an adult because it may be automatically reported. And then they just suffer in silence. Like, and I'm not saying that the chat box is a good thing. I'm just saying if we have it monitored, I would prefer us monitoring it so that we could get those children the help they need before reprimanding them. So that's just my thoughts there, because I know that kids are going through a lot with mental health. We're doing a lot of changes with our SAFE coordinators. So there's going to be some influx of really kind of figuring out who that first line of response for that student will be at the school. And I just don't want to see a kid in crisis getting in trouble because we created a policy that says absolutely prohibited any type of emotional support. That's my 2 cents. And so maybe my question is, do we have a program that monitors the chats, and could we utilize that program to get the students help if they're truly in crisis?
So specific to the question around Gaggle, we do have Gaggle on middle and high school laptops, and Gaggle does monitor internet usage, which would include any access to a chatbot. If there is input that takes place that is of concern, that is flagged by Gaggle, then we already have established procedures where that input would be reviewed. It would be sent to the school for review, and because the school already has established procedures around it, it is not something where the student is automatically in trouble because something is flagged by Gaggle. It is something where oftentimes there's a discussion by the relevant school staff members with that child to understand what was flagged before any additional steps are taken. So that would take place if there was a tool that was being used on the computer.
Okay, thank you for that. That was my biggest concern, is I just really want to make sure that we have the supports needed for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gallo. I queued up next. I also really appreciated the town hall meetings. I knew that AI was going to complicate things in education. I think I underestimated it by how much. It truly is way worse, I think, that any individual stakeholder understands. The policy itself, right? Like, this is not a binary thing, right? This school board is not saying you're allowed to use AI or you're not allowed to use AI for our students. That's not what we're discussing here, because Member Bonos kind of said, I wish we just didn't have AI. That's not even a choice we have as a school board. And we heard this over and over again from our students. Our students are not asking permission to cheat. What they are asking for is coherence. They said, depending on which classroom I go into, what grade I go into, what teacher I go into, my teachers, some of them absolutely say use AI, and some of them absolutely say no. So we, as a school board, don't have that question of use AI or don't use AI. Our teachers have that question. And they are making that decision every single day in their classrooms. And we got it from students. I think, and I ran through the notes of every single high school. I mean, there was trends where the AP and IB and ACE and dual enrollment courses actually had stricter prohibitions than AI. Somewhere they had less strict guidelines on AI. There were some standard and honors courses that were more permissive, and the teachers encouraged the use, some that they didn't. And so a lot of the students consistently said, well, my math classes sometimes allow AI, and I like that a tutor is my checker. The ELA classes will be like, this is absolutely cheating. My social studies and science fall somewhere in between. But they're literally just saying, depending on the teacher, it's completely varied. They're saying I can be in the same grade as someone else, taking the same class as someone else, but I have a different teacher, and the AI policy is completely different. That is a huge issue, because so based on our policy, sometimes you have discipline because you have AI use, sometimes you don't. And the other thing we saw is that some classrooms where teachers are saying you absolutely don't use AI, you're not allowed to as a student, the teachers are using AI. So I think I pulled the word map of what were the words that came up most consistently across from our students. And it was hypocritical, it was confusing, it was disrespectful, it was unprofessional, of how they were seeing the adults in the room and treating this technology and the power imbalance between them. Of course, students, the job of the education system is for them to learn. So I'm not saying students and teachers should have the same AI usage, absolutely not. There is so much work that our teachers can save time from using AI tools, but it's the inconsistency that is really eroding the trust that our students have. And I think my biggest concern is these students right now are feeling that they're feeling the adults in the room are hypocritical and inconsistent. And I assure you that when these students are a little bit older and they have their own kids, they're not gonna have a positive association with public schools. And how right now they feel as high school students and how they're being treated. Because they really don't, there was this one quote of saying, I have a bunch of quotes here. If you're going to use AI to grade my stuff, why shouldn't I use AI? I don't think teachers should use AI to grade work, because how are you going to expect me to do work that you're just using AI to create and to grade? It's hypocritical that teachers will fail you for an assignment where they themselves use AI to create and grade the exact assignment, and they have no idea how to write. There was one where it was teachers will send me to watch videos teaching me the thing that they're supposed to teach me. Why would I go watch that video instead of just going to AI that can teach it to me better? I mean, these are all very fair points by our students. And so one of the biggest issues we have is inconsistency in what our teacher policy is. I don't see anywhere in this policy even our ability to do anything about that. I think I saw page 4. What is it? Instances of student academic dishonesty involving AI shall be addressed with the CTA contract. I mean, is there anything that we can do in policy that creates more coherence around AI policy in the classroom?
So you can develop policy to the extent it does not conflict with the express requirements of the CTA contract. Under the CTA contract and your policies, if there's a conflict between the CTA contract and your policies, CTA contract will control.
We can't tell our teachers what to teach or how to teach, as long as they're following standards, correct?
They get the ability to implement their teaching style within the classroom as long as they are teaching the curriculum that has been mandated by the state, yes.
With or without AI?
Yeah, if they don't want to use AI, they don't have to. And if they want to use AI, it will have to be done in accordance with both CTA contract and to the extent that there are any additions made by policy in accordance with the policy.
Yeah. Well, there it is. So we can't get AI out of Orange County Public Schools without tackling that issue. So that's just not the question at hand. The question at hand is a lot more about what is the discipline to both either staff or guidelines to staff or to students. That's kind of what we have to work with. So a couple of questions, Maurice. On page 4, when we say the AI output in part A, is this where we're talking about detection tools without calling it detection tools? Guidelines to staff, A, professional responsibility.
Okay.
So I think, or is that B, sorry? That's it. Well, AI detection tools may be used.
Mm-hmm.
They can be used as the sole purpose. Okay.
Yes, in that section where it talks about, and I just want to make sure I'm reading the right place where you're saying the AI output. Oh, sorry. Yes, that is also speaking on any tool that may be used
For grading or something.
For grading.
Okay,
yes.
so just so I get this right. So in the guidelines for staff, A says you can't just grade a student based on what the AI told you the grade is, right? So if I put in a student paper, the AI says this is a B, I can't just give him that B. I have to use something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then for B, I cannot give a student a 0 just because some AI detection tool told me that it had used AI. Right? Yeah. So those are it. Okay, so then my question becomes, are these guidelines or are there professional consequences if a staff doesn't follow these guidelines?
I do believe we had a discussion before around what would happen if something was written in policy and a staff member did not, was found to not follow, and there was a discussion. I believe the superintendent mentioned that there would be a gradual rise where there would be first a discussion with the staff member in line with what is written inside of policy, right, before there were any additional steps that were taken. But those things are not outlined here. It was more about the steps that would be established between the administrator and the teacher as far as
so I mean
that conversation.
So these are guidelines / suggestions of what we expect professional conduct to look like. I think when we last talked about this was before the town hall meetings. The superintendent did say, of course, if a student or a parent believes they got an F because of AI detection tool or it was used for the assignment, we can look into it. Mm-hmm. But this is not, I almost remember explicitly verbatim the superintendent saying this is not happening, like it's not being reported. It was super clear in the town hall meetings that it is absolutely happening, both A and B. Like I think it was across every single town hall meeting, students said AI detection tools are being used and our teachers are using AI to create and grade assignments. I didn't have any question. It was kind of like an unspoken assumption rule. Every student had it. So there is a huge disconnect between our guidelines and suggestions of what we believe our staff and professional staff should be doing or not doing, and our ability to enforce anything. My issue with the policy is it sounds great on paper, and I'm not seeing it happen, and I don't know that we have any form of enforcing these suggestions. And so I can agree with this policy. It sounds great. I believe in it. I don't know that I have any real sense or belief that this is going to be enforced in any real way. So I'll just put that there. I don't know. Let's see, what was the other question I had? So on page 5, academic integrity. So students are responsible for adhering to the student code of conduct regarding academic honesty and the use of AI. Okay, the use of authorized AI tools is permissible. That's authorized by us, the district, correct?
Yes.
Provided that the final submitted work represents the student's original thoughtful work. Okay, when it says guidelines identified by the teacher, following the lesson guidelines identified by the teacher, is that a teacher is expected to provide upfront clarity that a student can or cannot use AI?
That's the intent there, that on the lesson, at the lesson level, that a teacher would have the ability to say, you cannot use AI with this lesson, or you can use AI with this lesson, and that it doesn't necessarily have to be a blanket, you can't use AI in my classroom.
Yeah.
If they want to do it at the lesson level, there are some lessons that it's appropriate to say that and it's something teachers already do, where they will define at the lesson level what tools can be used by students.
Got it. So okay. I mean, for that, I think right now, we know every teacher has a different policy on AI and use of AI, not just for the students, but for themselves. Mm-hmm. I just worry that as long as things are clearly defined, right? Like I remember in college, you started class, there was a syllabus at the beginning of class, these are the books that we're gonna read, this is the things you're allowed to do, this is the way tests go or don't go, yes or no go. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of knew the rules of interacting with the class for the rest of the year. Like, are teachers being clear up front? Hey, in this class we allow AI. Are they doing it assignment by assignment? Are they doing it after the fact where it's like, hey, everyone submitted their assignments. It's like, actually, you weren't allowed to use AI in that, so now you're going to like, what is happening in the classroom when it comes to identified by the teacher guidelines? Like, do we as a district know what guidelines each teacher has for AI? Like, are we collecting and we know?
The current feedback is that it is incredibly varied across every single, within the students that we spoke to, it is clear that the current guidelines are varied. And so in the conversation with the students, what was shared is that part of the goal of establishing this policy is providing at least a baseline that then we can have those conversations as a district when we start going into the actual procedures at the schools around, from this baseline, how is it being applied and being built inside of every school and by every teacher. But right now, we don't even have the baseline of saying whether or not, in general, establishing anything around AI. So it is really up to each individual teacher to establish that baseline on their own.
Can we, as a district, collect what is each teacher's policy on AI? Are you going to be using it in the classroom or not allowing it? And at least we know, and like, is that, like, I don't even know that we as a district we have any visibility on how widespread the use of AI is with our students that is actually allowed by our teachers versus not. I think it's hard for a student to go from one classroom where AI is encouraged in a good way or a bad way, and then go into one where it's like, hey, suddenly the student conduct is looking at you in the eye, and then you having any respect at all for the coherence of the institution. And I think that's what our students are telling us. And so I don't know if there's a way we can, at the very least, create a guideline suggestion that a teacher at the beginning of the year is very clear if you can or cannot use AI, and we ourselves take that into account when we do disciplinary action of our students. I just think our students are asking for guidance. They're not asking to cheat. And let me, I'm not saying students don't cheat. I think students will always cheat when given the tools to cheat if they can. Like, there is a group of students that if they will find a way to cheat no matter what. And they were very clear about that in the town hall meeting. They said, I will love to use the district's AI tools, but if it's 2 a.m. and I have 5 homework left, I will go to ChatGPT. So they're not lying about that. So like, that's clear, right? So, but I just think that they need support. Like the second biggest thing that I really heard is our students are going to AI to fill really important gaps for themselves. So number one gap, tutoring gaps, right? They don't understand something, or class time wasn't enough, or the way the teacher explained it was not the way that they learned it, right? Everybody learns differently. So they're like, I go to fill in my gaps on tutoring, call it. I heard the mental health gap, which is obviously, aside from my counselors have a massive load, I mean, we don't have SAFE coordinators anymore. Not to mention, all the students seem to be incredibly aware of the mandated reporter requirement. So they're kind of like, I don't have adults in my life that I can talk to or trust to for this stuff, so I have to go to AI for this. That's an awful second order effect of policies that have happened in the state, of funding that we have going on. So like, I understand students being frustrated with us just coming out right being like, AI is cheating and you shouldn't use AI. And they're looking at adults everywhere, either use AI, not follow these rules. I mean, I too would really lose a lot of faith in the system if that's how it was treated. So the policy itself that you put together, Maurice, is a lot better than what I think addresses a lot of the issues we had talked about. And again, my biggest thing is we have prohibitions and very clear code of conduct guidelines on our students. And then for our staff, everything's a suggested guideline. So it is what it is. I mean, that's what we work with. So thank you. Member Felder.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of what you said and other board members, I have some of the same concerns. First of all, thank you, Maurice, again for the presentation. And I was just so proud of the presentation at the school that I chose to do the AI discussion. And the questions that you set up was so apropos to what the students would be thinking. You just strategically did that in such a way that would engage them in truthful conversation, as Member Salamanca was saying, that she picked up from the students at the town meeting that she attended. Something she said, I just want to make sure, are we saying that if we put AI in this policy to determine what grade it is, if the teacher doesn't follow it, would that be something that they would be going against the policy? But this is one of the things I mentioned. You all said also, someone said, is AI really making us really efficient? That is a question. I was at brunch on Sunday, and I talked to some people who were just talking, and Switzerland was the first one in the schools to deal with this whole computing AI. They're now going back. They're taking the computers, the phones, the watches from the students, and they're going back to paper, pen, and pencil to write, to understand. And I know that's difficult for us to try to do that now because we're just now trying to, get with AI. Switzerland has the #1 school district in the world. I mean, they really are very advanced. So one of the things that I think, because, I've always not been a trooper of AI. I told y'all that early on at the beginning, but this is one of the concerns that I have if we use it, because it can be useful. I think in terms of, as a teacher, like right now, they're at the stretch. They winding down. They're at the stretch right now. And parents and students, especially seniors, are coming up with, I didn't do this assignment, I need to graduate. And they got to do all that because they want to make sure that they are accommodating to their students. So my concern is that if we're using AI has to be filtered through the rules that we create. So that would kill the whole idea that it's not AI or it's not us. The thing has to take what we put in there. It has to be filtered through the rules we create. And when we create the rules, then the users, that reinforces exactly what the teacher is teaching. Now that takes time, and that takes expertise, and that takes help for us, those of us who are computer literate and AI literate, to help teachers. That's how it's going to work. Because in all honesty, as Board Member Salamanca said, they were honest and say, look, if I got 5 papers to do and it's 12 o'clock at night, I'm going to GPT. And if I got papers to grade, then I've already understood. This is April, this is May. I know how Johnny B writes because I've discovered it by October. I know his pattern of writing. So look, I got all these papers. I need to do this, I need to do that. But I am concerned, and some of you mentioned it, this whole mental capacity that AI fills in for our students. We had a situation where a student committed suicide listening to AI. We have to find a way as a board to put in policy how we deal with that, because our children, they are needing help. They're needing to have a voice that's real and not something that was generated by a smart mind. They need to have real communication. And it's hard because budget cuts, and we can't get the kind of mental support that we are hoping to get because we have to be able to pay people to do those things. So we talk about, personal relations with the students. If you use AI, how are we going to do that? And again, I'm a teacher, and it's important to me that we establish or create in students cognitive learning. They have to be able to look at something and be able to think through how to do it. I don't want a computer to do it for them. But if we're not putting in place, filtered through the rules that we put in there, that's what's going to happen. So by the time we become old and not being bothered, the world is going to be run by computer-generated things. And that's not going to be good. Not in my opinion. It's not going to be good at all. So I think, again, in closing, Maurice and board, as we gently and gingerly work through this use of AI, we have got to not rush it. I don't care what anybody else is doing in the rest of the world, rest of the country, because we have all stated in so many words, we want the genuineness of learning to remain with our students, the genuineness of teaching to remain with our students, with our teachers, so that this cannot be a rushed endeavor. It is a creative endeavor, but it cannot be rushed. And if it is, we will find ourselves right back at this board, at this discussion. So again, in closing, there's some positive things with AI, but I will rest on this hill. AI has to be filtered through the rules we create, and create the rules that AI uses to reinforce exactly what the teacher is teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Faldo. Member Farrant.
Thank you. Riveting discussion on AI. I agree that I think the town halls were very eye-opening. I think it's a lot of things that, I mean, if you have kids that are teenagers right now, it's a lot of things you hear them say at home. I know for my own kids, they would feel frustrated that they sat in class all day and didn't really understand what was the assignment or didn't feel like the teacher explained it well. And then the teacher would give them a video and say, go watch this at home. And they're thinking, well, why didn't you just explain it in class? Like, that's what you're there for. We want a human. And really, this generation, I think, really is looking for real. They're looking for that human interaction. They're looking for things that aren't fake. But when the going gets tough and your teacher isn't explaining it well, you're going to turn to AI and say, you're going to maybe upload some of the things that the teacher's been giving you and saying, could you explain this to me in real person's terms, you know? Like, just dumb it down for me, help me to understand this. Our kids shouldn't have to be going to that level. The part of the policy that feels frustrating, like it's a lot of like language, a lot of things that maybe look good, but how do we enforce it? Are teachers even going to really understand? Is somehow the CTA contract maybe will contradict this and it won't even be applicable? How do we make sure that what we're putting in policy really is setting a standard and helping?
I think from both the conversation that we had with students and, previously we had the teachers that were members of the superintendent's group, and then we had the survey with parents. And one of the threads that was through all of those conversations is that piece around AI literacy and a piece around providing training and knowledge on the appropriate use of AI. So part of it is the AI policy that provides that initial lens, but beyond that, there does need to be education that is around just exactly what is AI, what is one of the things we've talked about here very, very, a lot, which is productive struggle, which is that piece where the AI is not actually taking that work from the student. They're still doing that work. I know that there are district teams that, for example, have worked extensively on some behind the scenes courses to help teachers learn more about AI, and there are going to be discussions about how the best way for those courses for that course to be distributed to teachers and for them to take it. But it is the next step that is going to be key. And I agree with the statements that are being made here for sure, where it is not passing this policy and then we're done. There's a lot of work that will need to be done. This is just the baseline of trying to put the floor for where we need to go next.
Okay. I do agree. I think it's going to have to be something that is a continual discussion by the board. And I think as we, hopefully, I would love to see laptops coming away, which would then enforce our stance on teachers having to teach. They can't just say, open your laptop and watch this video. As we see that happen, which, then I think we'll begin to see a change in the framework. But it's very hard. I think there's different areas. So help me understand this. So if we're using this for an IEP, for instance, which I think is very beneficial. IEPs can be very lengthy. If you're putting in like, these are some of the parameters we want to use, how do we word this? So it helps with that, but it needs to also have that human interaction where we're looking it over, we're making sure that it looks good, it's correct. What happens to that data when it's inputted? Can it be done in a way where you put, like, can we have in policy where a teacher or school staff can't form an IEP for a specific student, like putting in their name, where it just says like student, and then they take everything that's written, you put it back on your whatever you're using, Word or whatever document you're using, and then the staff member has to go in and put the student's name so that AI isn't receiving any of that information.
The language that we have in policy that is around the use of AI tools states that staff should use tools that are vetted and approved by the district. We currently don't have a tool that is vetted and approved for use with IEPs, but that piece around once that, if that is a direction that the district chooses to go into and there is a tool that is identified, the guardrails that are being discussed here would have to play a role. So number one, the tools that we have today are tools that it's been established through contract, the way that they can manage student information and student resources. So, and specific to AI, things such as no training, no retention of that data beyond our contractual agreement with that company. And so those would have to be pieces that part of that contractual establishment would have to be part of that also. And I guess to put it another way, it would be a way of saying that if a tool is going to be used in that manner, it would have to be a tool that would be safe for student use overall, where it would be safe to enter in a name, a student name, because it is a tool that's been vetted, that it will properly manage the educational records or any kind of educational information that's put inside that tool. And then that data would be destroyed afterwards and would not be used for any kind of training. And then the training process that we would have to ensure is that, one, that tool meets district guidelines, meet Florida state's law, and that there is a review process for anything that comes out of it before it is actually finalized and then sent off to the state or put in front of a parent as the IEP for the student. So there would have to be a lot of processes that are built in before a tool like that could be used and put forward for teachers.
Do you feel it would even be beneficial then? I mean, that sounds like it would be a lot longer process. If you have to go through all those steps still, I mean, you might as well just sit there and copy and paste and do your own work.
I think the question, really, the answer to the question depends on where that work is taking place. So that establishment piece is a tool following Florida law, is a tool actually providing output that meets district guidelines. There are steps inside of there that can actually be established before that tool is ever used by an educator. So that once the educator actually gets that tool in their hands, what they're getting is a tool that has been vetted, that has those pieces in place. And now what they're doing is they're using that tool to then scale and get an output for them to review. But they know that they can have a level of trust that what is being outputted is not just a general output, but it's an output based upon some guardrails that has already been put in place by the district in the procurement and the distribution of that tool. So what we're talking about, and this is the piece around AI overall, which is that it does not eliminate the need for work. It may shift the ability for us to take some of the components of that work and take it where, instead of having every single person who's writing, using the example of an IEP, where every single person is referencing district policies, referencing the state laws, and every single person has to consistently do that on every single IEP, where, just like the conversation we have with the policy, we can provide a baseline where the resource has that built in, and we can ensure some consistency in that being done, still requiring human review. And, it's very clear from the conversation of the board that we want that human review, and it is needed, but at least providing a baseline of consistency in the initial production of some of the components.
Okay. And then how are we involving parents as well? Because I think the human in the loop, I want to make sure parents are part of that process. How are we involving parents then? Or how does the policy really involve parents? Or is this more of the institution, if you will, of OCPS is dictating the policy?
So I think there's a couple different aspects to that question. I do think that there is the aspect of AI literacy and training that may be provided to parents. And through the survey that was provided to parents, there were areas where parents identified that they would like additional training with AI. And so that is a piece that we will be looking at. I think that when it comes to the educational inclusion of electronic resources in what the teacher is using in the classroom, I do think that is a piece where that is going to become it will have to reference back what's inside of the CTA contract, because I do think with some of the language that's there, that will have to play a role.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes. Go ahead.
So the CTA contract actually does talk about the usage of AI tools by employees, and it says as following: at the beginning of each school year, bargaining unit members will be provided a list of district-approved AI platforms which may be utilized by the teachers for instructional purposes. So contractually, we are setting the standard of what AI programs teachers will be allowed to use by utilizing our data. And that dovetails with this policy that says we're going to vet any AI tools to ensure that the appropriate privacy guidelines are met, et cetera, to ensure that, student data isn't going out into open source out in the public. And then the contract also says if during the school year the district approves any additional AI platforms which may be used by teachers for instructional purposes, it will provide notification to bargaining unit members and will make available training on how to use the platform. So we're keeping control of the platforms that teachers are using district-wise. I see the skeptical look. I understand the skeptical look, right? But if a teacher's utilizing an AI platform that hasn't been approved by the district, then that is something that we would take action against to, number one, stop, and number two, could potentially subject the teacher to disciplinary action if they do it. Also, if a teacher is misusing a platform, there is a provision in the contract. Member Salamanca referred to the freedom that they have to implement the curriculum and essentially, but their contract also says the administrator has the right and obligation to question, consult, and direct whenever necessary. So for example, if a teacher is using an AI platform to help grade and they are not checking it over and the teacher's marking things wrong that are actually correct, or marking things correct that are actually wrong, vice versa, right? Our administrator can come in and say, especially if there's a complaint lodged by a student saying, hey, I actually got this question right and I got marked wrong for it. Our administrator would have the ability to go to the teacher and say, what did you utilize to grade this? And if they say AI, did you check it? And if the answer is no, then we can direct them to say, hey, you can use this for grading purposes, but you're going to have to check to ensure its accuracy. So we do have that ability contractually to direct our instructional personnel if they are misusing a tool.
Yeah, I don't see that really happening well. And that's all they have to say is, oh, I just missed it. And they don't have to even say that they used AI. I think the bottom line is we really just want teachers to be teaching in an engaging way, that kids are engaging. End of story. This will be an interesting conversation to have as the time goes by. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ferrant. And thank you, Mr. Palmerini, for reading the language. We'll go back to have questions for sure. Member Douglas.
I just wanted to say, I don't want us to lose sight that we also have a great district and we have great teachers. And you are doing a great job at your work. AI is it's a discovering for all of us, and we are new at this, and we all discover as we go. It may be tweaking later on, and it may be great, but what I'm hearing here is a lot of bashing about teachers who are not doing the work. We have great teachers that are doing a great job in Orange County Public Schools. We have a new school, and our schools, our students are performing, and we can see that every time. What I'm hearing, it was great to be at Horizon High and listening to the kids talking and having opinions, very smart kids. What I heard is that students are in need of that one-on-one interaction, human interaction with teacher, and the feedback that they can give after an assignment. Now, they did not dismiss the use of AI, but what they wanted is to use it as a tool, okay, as a tool, and not as a solution for the homework that they wanted to do. They were not against teacher using AI as well, but what they were against is the length of the homework that they were giving and not having that feedback that they needed to have after the assignment so they could learn more. So that's what was needed, and I think we need to reinforce that one-on-one interaction after any assignment, that the student, the teacher, pulled aside the child and said, this is where you have a mistake, this is where we need to improve, and etc. That one-on-one conferencing that we used to do. And it's still going, I'm sure, in a lot of the classes. Let me think again. So that's really what I wanted to say. So the teachers are doing a great job, they do. However, when they give an assignment, try not to be too lengthy because the students have a whole lot of homework, and give them a feedback. We have a one-on-one interaction with them after the assignment. And that's what really they're looking after. The kids want that to happen. And just like I said before, we have a lot to discover about AI. We have a platform, but it's not perfect. So what maybe they're using maybe need to be tweaked also to make it a little bit more efficient to teach. So we're working together in that same path, and we're trudging along, and hopefully we'll find the promised land, right? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Member Douglas. Member Byrd.
Thank you. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. Inconsistency. First of all, I want to thank Maurice. I think that you did a great job of listening to us, listening to students. I really, really appreciate you doing the town halls. And more than that, though, I really appreciate you publicly sharing in this presentation exactly what the students said. And I honestly feel like we should be sending this to all of our staff, our teachers, our secondary teachers, and let them know, this is what students are saying, these are their concerns, and then let this be part of our ongoing education. And that's what I wanted to say about all of this. It is here, it is changing daily, but we have to, as you said, we have to have a home base. We have to have guardrails, and this is just the beginning. And I think this is a great place to start. I think that you've addressed kind of the basics, and I think the more that we put this into play, and as more teachers learn more about AI tools, I think we will see maybe we'll see less and less of those inconsistencies. I think right now it's so new that there's still so many teachers maybe that aren't using it, teachers that are really engaged with it, teachers that, that of course there's going to be inconsistencies. I think as it becomes more ingrained in kind of, their practices, that maybe there won't be so many inconsistencies. And it's unfortunate for the students right now, and this because it is a big change in education with AI. And I get it, that's frustrating. But on the other hand, too, there are inconsistencies with grading. I mean, just, if you talk to students who, I hear all the time about students who take, I'm taking AP, U.S. history, and my friend is taking AP U.S. history over here at blah, 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 and this high school, and they got a 3, and they now get an A in the course. But that is not the way my teacher is grading. Well, that's certainly not fair either for them, but that's the way it is. And that's the way it is when they go to college. Every professor is going to do their class different. And I just think that I'm not downplaying what they're feeling, but I don't think that you're ever going to have every classroom have the same rules. It's just, when you're in high school, every teacher does things differently, and that's just part of being a student. You figure that out. And I think that as this gets more comfortable, that will get better. I think this is a great place to start. My only concern is what Member Gallo brought up on the prohibited use C. It would be my preference to not have that in there, only because of the same reason. I think that, not that I'm supporting emotional use, but we already have Gaggle for that purpose of, flagging students that need help. I don't want it to be a discipline thing. If a student is using a chatbot for support, we will hopefully find out through our Gaggle and get them the support they need. I don't think that they need discipline on top of that. So my preference would be for that not to be in this policy. Other than that, I am good with the policy, and I appreciate the work that was put into it. And I look forward to seeing it grow and change, and all of us learn more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Byrd. Member Vanos.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'll hit on some of the comments other people made, but I'll just start off by saying I think, as far as teachers and paras using it to manage their workflow, is it more efficient? I don't know. But if they find it to be more efficient, I'm fine. If a student uses AI to study because they find, it to be helpful to provide sample questions or, a study guide, fine. Those things don't bother me. But okay, looking at the guidelines for staff. So this is 3A. So what I would require, what I think is important to have in this policy is if an employee is using an AI tool. So if a teacher is using an AI tool for grading or to help create instructional materials, I get it's not something that we can stop them from doing. But I do think it's important to include in here that if they're going to use it for instructional materials or grading, that is disclosed to parents and students. If we can add in more, I would like them to explain why they're using it so that people understand. I think the disclosure piece and the explanation is important to helping people understand where AI is being used in our schools and why. I think we need to keep coming back to why. And I think we need to require people to articulate that. With the second piece, B on that same page. The detectors that
Maurice, I think it's on the wrong side.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good, Member Vanos. It was just so that the public's seeing what you're saying.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. With respect to B and the student discipline for the detectors, I think I asked this before, and I apologize if you provided the answer. Do we pay for those, or how?
We do not have a generally available detector that we pay for staff to use. I believe that there are some AP courses where Turnitin is part of the required tool that is used, and Turnitin does have a AI detection feature inside of it, but it is not something outside of that specific example where we pay for an AI detection tool.
Okay, but if teachers are relying on them to determine whether AI's been used, and I guess it's written in here, I think we should be providing that resource to teachers.
One of the challenges, and I think it is the challenge that's posted here also, is that piece around the reliability overall of the tools, and what was shared even by students where they saw inconsistency sometimes when the same paper was fed into the tools. And I think it would have to be a discussion that that would have to be conducted, where if we are providing a tool, then the statement we're making around the tool, which is that it's going to, in some consistent way, detect AI, would have to be a statement that I think would have to be valid. And there's not really support right now that provides enough comfort to really say that those tools would consistently provide a valid result for staff to use. The language that's in here provides a recognition that there is staff that may be using those tools, but also tries to establish that the tools, because they are not universally valid, that they cannot be the sole tool that is being used to determine if a student is being academically dishonest. So it's trying to really walk those two pieces, but I think I would be concerned around the, for lack of a better way of putting it, veneer of reliability that may be placed if we are providing an AI detection tool, also knowing that the percentage of the detection is not high.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you actually don't want them to, I mean, that in theory, you actually aren't really encouraging people to use AI detection tools. You'd rather them use something else. So you're just saying if they do, then it can't be the sole basis.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So if a teacher believes that, I guess is what they're saying, they look back, they think a student used AI, so they're now going back in looking at the edit history, they're comparing other samples, they're having conversations with the student. I know in some schools they're asking other teachers to read the product to see, kind of get their opinion. So again, very time-consuming process. But let's say they get to the end of that and the teacher says, I believe the student is using AI, and the student says that they're not, that they didn't use it. How does that get resolved? Let's say, the student gets in trouble for using AI, and then there's discipline, and then, can the principal come in and say, I guess, how does it get resolved if a parent comes in and there's disagreement about whether maybe the principal disagrees with the teacher, and then there's a parent involved in the student? Like, how does that ultimately get resolved? Who has the final say?
Well, the conversation that we had with students, the preface that we provided when we asked for student feedback around discipline is that there's language that's being added around discipline, even inside the Code of Student Conduct, around the use of AI. And what students shared is that they would like for us to really consider a process or recommendations for items that teachers can do before the disciplinary process kicks in. So if there is this place where there is a suspicion of academic dishonesty, there is then the Code of Student Conduct and the process that's outlined there, and there is inside the Student Code of Conduct an investigative component that's there. And it would be that investigative component that would be the final determination of if there would be any disciplinary consequences if the teacher says the student was submitted work that was not their own.
Thank you for that answer.
I think Deputy Superintendent Martinez has.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I will share with you, Board Member Vano, so one of the great things that came out of the town hall meetings that we had was obviously student voice. And that's something that we're continuously preaching to our principals to make sure that we understand what is that student perspective. The feedback that was received was extremely eye-opening to several of our high school principals, so much so that it's actually generated conversations within the school for teachers and staff. So, one of the things that I was thinking about was really how this has laid out the foundation for us, because it works a little bit, and we all know I'm a huge Yankees fan, but I'm comparing it to like a baseball analogy, right? When you step up to the plate, you just don't step up and swing randomly. You listen to your coaches, you take a couple of the balls to see what's a ball, what's a strike. And, using that analogy, the teacher input combined with the student voice is going to be really huge for us when we start having conversations within those school walls. And really the care and thoughtfulness that's been taking place, thanks to all of you, in establishing this policy is going to be huge, because this is now the groundwork for us to further those conversations. Going back to the question that you proposed to Mr. Dragon, you want to see conversations where teachers are providing their input, as well as that student perspective, and how are we going to handle those situations that arise. And again, communication is going to be key to those successful relationships that we want to have. So, moving along, I think this has really helped us to define what is our strike zone, really what is our AI policy, and how is this going to impact our schools.
Thank you, and I agree. It's great to have the student input. I can give an example of what I'm talking about. Student writes a paper for IB. Many teachers believe that it was written by AI. Someone has to certify to IB that this was not written by AI. What happens in that case? Parents involved, students involved, teachers are saying this isn't their work. I think these are real questions that actually need to have an answer. And I agree that we continue to fine tune the policy, but I think there are real things that are happening right now that we don't have good answers to, and we need to have an answer to who makes that final determination. So, that's a concern that's another concern I have with B. Okay, moving on to guidelines for students. For Section A, verification, what happens if a student doesn't verify the accuracy of the content?
Grade.
If a student does not verify the accuracy of the content that's generated by AI, which would then result in inaccurate content being submitted as part of their assignment, and that the most direct consequence will be whatever they're going to get on what they've submitted, because it would be that they're submitting now work with inaccurate content.
Okay, so I guess is the point of this section just to say that AI is not going to save them? They can't say, well, AI told me this was the right answer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They still have to do the work.
Got it. Okay, for B, academic integrity, when it says students are responsible for adhering and to the work submitted, and it says the use of authorized AI tools is permissible, is it any use? Is the key that as long as it's an authorized AI tool, they can use it for any use? As long as the teacher provides the guidelines?
We have several just digital resources overall, and AI fits into that bucket of digital resources. And a teacher, as part of any lesson they are providing, is able to set the guidelines for what resources can and cannot be used as part of that lesson or the completion of that lesson. And so a teacher can, even if it is a AI tool that is permissible, a teacher can certainly within that lesson say, this is a tool that will not be used as part of this lesson.
Okay, and I think this was going to something Member Salamanca was saying as well, that just needs to be clearly articulated as to what is allowed and what is not, because just because it's an authorized AI tool, it doesn't mean that you can use it for all of its permissible uses. Okay, and then the part, provided the final submitted work represents the student's original thought and effort. I think this is extremely vague. Does that mean some portion of the final submitted work has to involve the student's original thought and effort? Does that mean the whole thing? How are you interpreting that?
Part of this came from the discussion that actually took place with students where the students themselves provided a line in between what they saw as the tutoring aspects of AI and then the aspect where you just put in a prompt, you just get a result, and then that result actually does not just represent any thought or any effort on your part. It is just the output from the AI that includes no review. One of the things that came through very clearly in the conversations with students is not just that there was a differentiation in the use or not the use of AI, but also there was a differentiation in, even when you go just to the category of the use of AI, in what teachers said could be done with the AI. As far as some students, it was, you can use AI to generate some starters, but then after you generate the starter, you can go back and you have to do everything else after that yourself. And then for some students, it was not only use it to generate the starter, but after you finish writing, you can put it into a tool and use a rubric to then have it go through your work. So there were inconsistencies that were inside of just how teachers were sharing overall students could use the tools, but the consistent part that came through is that if it was just an input that generated an output, there was nothing original to the student, and there was no effort that came from the student, and so that should be considered when we're talking about academic integrity.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. I think that's extremely broad. I mean, from what you're saying, as long as there's some effort and some original thought, students can submit essentially AI output, as long as there's some. I mean, how do we interpret that? What does that mean? What does some effort look like? What does some original thought look like? And I'm not asking this to be difficult. I'm asking this to have conversations with teachers where,
To the teachers, yeah.
you know, I mean, a teacher has shared that, you know, she considers it cheating if a student writes and, you know, is supposed to write an essay. And she said, you know, no AI. Well, the student used it just to sort of like give her some tips. And then like based on those suggestions, the student revised her writing. Like she considered that to be cheating. And I think, you know, I think when you're maybe asking, and I understand there can be a use here when there's a gap in learning and, you know, I don't understand this physics problem. Like what step am I missing? Help me figure this out. Or, you know, there's a step I've missed in this, I don't know, calculus problem. Are there steps in calculus problems? Yeah. You know, that maybe there's a gap when students get home, they realize they need that piece. I don't think personally in K-12 education, there's a place for AI in writing. I think this is a foundational skill. Again, I think it's different among subjects. I think writing is a foundational skill. And I think anytime even if you're using AI to generate ideas, to help you create an outline, to give you feedback, like that's like part of the process of learning. And so I think there needs to be different guidelines. Maybe it's for different subjects, but I really worry about treating the use of AI the same, whether it's for a calculus class or a writing class. They're different. And then the last comment is the last comment just relating to this is regarding the emotional support. I agree. I don't want to punish students But I think we need to make it very clear that relying on AI for emotional support is not right and it's not healthy. You know, it was sad talking to students. I mean, they even said in the student town hall, they said, we know that AI, you know, emotional help is not really helping us, but we're using it anyway. It's sad. You know, I hope that we've been making those outreaches to partner organizations, which we haven't, in this area, trying to establish those partnerships, making sure we're having more telehealth, mental health help for our students, because what they're doing is not healthy and it's not good and it's not helpful. And I know that's not on you, so that's not part of your job. So I'll just end it with saying, you know, I think, again, I understand that AI, some people use, you know, consider it to be more efficient for some workflow. Fine. Students can use it for studying. Got it. I do think everyone, I think up here probably agrees that AI literacy is important. And so I think that should be part of the policy. I think we all agree that students should understand what it is, what it can be used for, what are some of the big consequences in research on it. I think that is an important piece. I think we also probably need to have a bigger conversation on busy work in school, because students, what I heard, feel pressured to use AI because they have so much busy work that they just can't get it done. So I think that's a conversation that we need to have. And I also think, and I understand Member Gallo's point about laptop, we can separate that from AI, but unfortunately you basically use AI on a laptop. So there is, that's true, on your phone. There's some overlap there. And I also think, you know, I can tell you what some teachers are doing to combat this, and I've heard this from several teachers. They are basically having all written work done during class, in class time with browser locks on, or even just pen and paper, but, you know, in class time where students can't access AI. So I think more and more teachers are turning to that because it is a way to make sure that our students' learning is not infiltrated by improper uses of AI. And so I would love to see, and I know some of the other board members have echoed this as well, but I would love to see more of that. Just doing all of that in class. And then I guess the last point that I would say is, I think it's really important that whether you are a student, whether you are an employee, that no one, and this was also brought up in the student town hall, that no one should be required to use AI. And that's why I think it's important in class. If a teacher's going to use AI, they want to use it for something in the lesson, it needs to be disclosed, it needs to be explained. And if a parent does not want their student to use AI, and there are so many reasons people don't want to, right? And it's not necessarily because you don't want to change or because you hate technology. There are many, many reasons that people are opposed to AI, and I think we need to respect that. And I mean, people can opt out of books, people can opt out of health education, people should be able to opt out of AI. I just think that's common sense. And I think it should apply to both teachers and students. And I think if a teacher or educator decides not to use it, that cannot be, or a student, that should not be something that they feel negatively impacts their review or performance. I think that's it. Thank you. But I do appreciate the time you put into this. I enjoyed going to the student town hall with you. I know this is not an easy task, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness.
Thank you, Maurice. I think I'm last up, but it was just a few of the clarifying stuff. John, you read to us the contract that said that a teacher may use any of the AI tools that the district has approved. So Khan Academy AI thing, or all the stuff that we approve, right? So they may use it, right? Is there any language in there that prohibits the use of anything that is not district approved?
Let me look.
Because I'm reading may use what we approve as a opt into what we approve, but I'm not hearing an opt into not using prohibited tools.
It doesn't explicitly say you can't use non-approved tools. How I look at this one, how I read it is that what we're doing is saying these are the tools you can use, and to the extent that we have not approved a tool, we cannot use it. So I look at the language more as we're telling you what you can use,
But we're not telling you what you can't use, because we know that we do not want them using AI detector tools, and they are actively very much so using AI detector tools. That's not in our approved list.
No, I don't know, but it says, which may be utilized by teachers for instruction. We tell them at the beginning of the year, the district-approved AI platforms, which may be utilized by teachers for instructional purposes, so.
Yeah, it sounds like you may use the ones we suggest, of which many of them are like, I don't want to use AI, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use my own. So I'm glad we had some language. I don't know that it's very helpful for the purposes we've discussed today. Is there anything on disclosure? Would teacher will disclose the use to
No.
parents, to students,
Not in the
to staff, principal?
Not in the CTA contract, no.
Okay. And I think one of the things, to the point made, there are some incredible teachers. I think Member Vanos mentioned that are, no, Member Vanos was talking about like teachers that are doing in-class work and the pen and paper, and we're gonna do this together, and we're gonna discuss, and we're gonna write this stuff. But that's not all teachers. And I think the last recognition I brought in here, my AP language teacher, who has been teaching for 20, 30 years. She has 6-7 periods of AP language. She read every single one of our handwritten essays for all 6-7 periods. She would have them like 2 essays per 9 weeks, so it wasn't like 100 busy work assignments every day. But those 2 essays, we got real feedback on that helped us be better writers and communicators. And every student in that class remembers how much she helped us be writers. What our students were saying in the town hall was not that. And they were not complaining or saying anything about those teachers. Like, they know who are really great teachers. They were making comments about teachers that are creating enormous amount of busy work, because AI makes it really easy to create 10, 20 worksheets, because it's just, they don't have to do it. And they can just say, hey, I want to make a spreadsheet for this concept, make a spreadsheet for this concept. And students are getting a lot of busy work. That isn't also expected not to happen in the class, it's happening after class. And so you have this like AI created assignments for students that then use AI to submit the assignments. And it's like the why are we doing this is a really important question that Member Vanos brought up. Like, why are students using AI for their busy work? Well, probably because it's busy work. And why are teachers doing busy work? I don't know, maybe they're also busy in so many other things that is not on the teaching of the day of the class, but there's a lot of why questions here that I think are at the core of the problem, and AI is just like this red herring of what we focus on for that. But I do think that there is just general distrust from our students, where they have a teacher that in the classroom they're writing and getting grade and feedback, and then they have another teacher that in an English class, and I have another student in one of my schools that said, my AP English teacher has not read one DDQ or FRQ the entire year. It's all been AI. So and it's the same class, they're gonna go take the same AP test, maybe some students will do better than others, and I know that there's some inherent discrepancies and every classroom is different, but it's definitely not fair, and if students don't see it as fair, and if a student knows that that teacher hasn't graded one FRQ or DDQ their entire year, and then suddenly they're looking at the code of conduct because of academic integrity, that is incredibly unfair. And so like I still have issues with, if we don't have every teacher pick a position, are we encouraging AI in this classroom or not encouraging AI in this classroom? Are we taking them to the code of conduct for AI use or not? Then students are constantly in this gray zone. And to your question Member Vanos asked, I did hear from the town hall meeting, students have been getting zeros when the teacher decides that an AI was used. I don't think right now there's any process aside from the teacher believes that it's AI and they get a 0. And there was a ton of them that had examples of them getting 0. So I don't think there's a lot of checks and balances usually, unless a parent gets very involved or principal gets really involved. It really is the grade the teacher gives you. And so some balance there might be good, some of it might not. I don't really know that I have a good answer to that one, but it's true. And my last thing is on AI detectors. And I talked about this in the last time. Turnitin.com back in the day used to be like 90% accurate. AI detectors today are like 60%. Like the reliability, it is awful. And most specifically, AI detectors have shown and been proven by research that they have a bias against second language learners because they just write differently. They have a bias against students with disabilities. So if you are on the spectrum, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, you get flagged significantly more as using AI. Just because of the structure of how you write. And then also actually the top of language usage. So if you have a perfect SAT score on English, you likely do use the Oxford commas, your vocabulary is probably more advanced, you're getting flagged. I have a huge issue with our teachers using these low reliability AI detectors and giving students 0. I think it's gonna overly impact students with disabilities, second language learners, not to mention students that are actually smart and need to get into college and are competing out there and hustling and working really hard every day. And suddenly they're going to get a code of conduct for plagiarism that is going to be on the record for their university application. So huge issue with AI detectors. And I don't see anywhere in the policy or in the CTA contract, honestly, any teeth to us saying you cannot use an AI detector, and we highly don't support it. Like, as is the policy, it's a guideline. It'd be nice if you didn't. And then the CTA contract is kind of like, you may use this, but anything else, you're free to use. So those are my issues that I think we come back to, Maurice, on next year or whenever we come back to the AI policy, but they're pretty open-ended, and I'm sure it will continue being an issue. But at the very least, some disclosure to parents and students of, I am a teacher who believes in AI, will be using AI, encourage the use of AI. You won't have a code of conduct in this classroom if you use AI with the right guidelines. Or I'm a teacher that hates AI, I don't use it, my students won't use it. That'd be great. I think every parent would deeply appreciate that. And other than that, I think we're just eroding the trust of our students and our parents when it comes to our public schools. But thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. Then with that, I think we are done. Thank you so much, Maurice. Really appreciate the work on this. I know it was a lot.